Planning board meeting for April 3rd.
Again,
Okay.
I'd like to call the order of the Charlton Planning Board for April 3rd, 2024. First up, we have a public hearing for GM Properties LLC, the village's multifamily units at 35 North Main Street. We have an email requesting that we be continued to, that they would like to be continued to April 17th, 2024.
Have we opened that public?
We
hearing?
have not, we have not,
So we don't need to vote.
We don't
we
need-
just-
correct. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Not 7:05 yet for the next one. So since Lee's here, how you doing?
well, thanks, how are you?
I'm good. We'll skip right over the 7:05 public hearing. Because we could not start that. But we had you come in just to give us an update. How you guys making out? Because you haven't heard from me in a while, probably since before Christmas, right?
Thanks for asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're about 25 months into the program. We're progressing at a pretty good pace. We're on
Yep.
target for our TCO for June 30th.
June 30th. All right. All right, how you guys making out with the wall? Because we get questions about, hey, what are they doing?
We're doing a lot of everything.
Yeah.
So, the first veneer failure, we've been working on that with a bunch of engineers over a period of time.
Yep.
A remedy for, that we're moving forward with, which is what you see on the Route 20 side with the penetrations. Is preparation for anchors. They're called platypus anchors. Platypus anchors are a anchor that goes in kind of like a hook. That once you get it into its depth, 18, 22 feet, depending on its engineer, you pull it back and it kind of opens up like an anchor. Then you'll have a bearing plate on the outside of the wall and not a bolt. So it's a scheme for that that's going around or approximately 3,000 of them.
Yep.
Throughout the site of the project right now. So that's what we're implementing. The plates are not on, so it looks like it's incomplete work.
Yep.
But the anchors where you see them in 20 are installed. The rework of the wall that we did bring back up is at elevation 724 on one side and they're about 6 feet because
Yeah.
it tapers to go back up. So we'll be down there, weather permitting, next 10 days or so.
Good.
And we'll get back to our finding and parking lots and getting the site restored.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
Is the new wall gonna need those anchors also?
So it will not. We are out there doing some survey work again. Part of the surety that we discussed is just that. What kind of movement have we had, if any? We're not, where we have seismic monitors and prisms, we're not seeing movement. So this is an added belt and suspenders for that confidence.
All right, cool.
How deep are those platypus?
So they range from 8 feet up to 22 feet.
Yes, yeah. And are you planning to do all of the retaining walls?
There's some discussion. The current plan does suggest we'll do it all. So there's some suggestion of not doing some of them.
All right,
What is TCO?
Temporary certificate of occupancy.
So you do that at 100%, you don't just do it, here's 50% of the building. Here's
So
it.
Amazon has what's called the TCO. The town recognizes TCO, their verbiage is slightly different. TCO that you might be familiar with gives beneficial occupancy over the period. We're not really seeking that. We're seeking closure of the building with punch lists and as we work through it. There's an Amazon component that is the conveying systems. That is gonna still be under sequence of operation for a while as they ramp up and test. So that's kind of the construction side as we move out. Amazon personnel from HR, kind of mobilization and that sort is probably more in the July timeframe.
Can I ask you a couple of questions about traffic?
Go ahead.
So Route 20, I see doing good work there. I see the retaining wall on that side of the building.
Yeah.
And the preparations are underway with DOT approvals to synchronize the lighting system and signals.
So our signaling is in place. It won't be fully functional because by DOT constraints until we're fully functional and trucks are operating. So our mast arms that go up that hang the lights will back. A sequence, and it'll be correlated, and it'll be synced as soon as they operate.
And who's in charge of actually programming that sync? Is it like Vanessa or?
The Vanessa,
DOT?
it's under DOT auspice,
Yes.
so,
Suggest this is the program.
the program is written.
Yeah.
And the sequence of operations there and the signal contract will tie into that. We'll verify that through kind of the commissioning process.
All right, the next item is, I remember when you guys were getting permitted for it, you guys were calling for the electricity to come in via Route 20. And since it's had to change, it comes in through 169, and you have the telephone poles at the corner there. And I know that there's been a request from the neighbor that lives directly right next door to the entrance, about providing possibly some shading, because we have 3 telephone poles there.
So
Or 2.
what you see right now is temporary. There are 3 additional poles.
Yep.
That are temporary. So if you think of 169, you have pole 100 on the east side of 169, comes across the road
Yep,
to pole 101.
at your curb cut.
Yeah, that
Yes.
will stay.
All right, so on the permitting plan, they didn't call for that.
There's a underground street that is gonna go to the vaults where they would have the meters.
Okay,
National Grid is who we're working with on our power distribution.
yeah,
About a year and a half now, they haven't been able to provide that switch that goes on top of that.
yep,
So to keep the project going, we put the 3 poles on our property,
yep,
servicing the 7 megs that's going up the hill.
Yep.
When we get that equipment, we'll have a shutdown for a day and switch that over. I don't know when that is.
but is that one pole gonna stay there? It's on,
101 will
one will
always.
stay there?
Yep.
All right. Would that require modification as far as for screening possibly, since it wasn't on the original permitting plans that they submitted when they got approval?
Well, yeah, I mean, we'd have to run it back,
That's
that's what
what I-
Dan raised, see
Okay.
if, they're willing to put up some screening to be done as a minor field
Okay.
modification.
So I've been in discussion with the neighbor, Steve,
Yep,
and we are gonna put, once we grade and finally come up, we'll put down the privet planting, not a hedge, but
all right,
hemlocks, a series of those. We, in cooperation at his request, we took down several large trees
yep,
to his increases view corridor.
Yep.
So we're working with him.
all right. And then how are we making out with the runoff that comes up over the back of his yard, come down from the slope?
I haven't heard any reports from Steve. In fact, I haven't spoken to Steve in months.
All right,
We did some work on his driveway. We're gonna be doing some more work on his driveway and
Correct.
Shelley's driveway
yep,
as the weather improves. So imminently, I tried Steve today.
yep. I know he was at a show, I think.
His voicemail was full. So,
So he did send me a video when it looked like the river coming up over.
a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think your site has really changed that much.
We have put plantings in.
Have you
additional
created, have you
plantings.
created a swale to stop any of the runoff, to run up
We
from?
did not, but we
Okay.
stabilized the hill conditions and
Yeah.
I think that dissipated some of that flow. We haven't had the same heavy, robust events. Like just 2.5 inches in an hour. But he has not indicated to me that it's a continuing thing.
All right, well,
Maybe he's reporting to you differently.
Yeah.
He's pretty good about calling on this.
all right, I just want to make sure there's no more runoff than that was previously there that's going on to his property
Not that I'm,
prior and after.
not that I'm aware of, but we're not done with them and
Yeah,
we're not done with our planting.
All right.
We're gonna do additional. Negotiating. At the end of the day, I would like Graves to come out
yep,
and offer his opinion,
okay,
as to the conditions. So that, try to be a good neighbor.
as a board, we just don't want to hear from the neighbor, you get my drift.
I hear it. Neither do I.
Yeah, correct.
But I do
So-
respond to Steve.
Yeah, no, okay, I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
there's clarity, we just want to make him whole, make him happy. I mean, just so he will have something that.
Yeah.
where it was
Not
previously.
hearing from him is an indication to me that things have improved.
Okay.
If you hear otherwise,
Yeah.
like I say, he's usually pretty,
All right,
but we're gonna be working closely with him with his
Yes.
driveway, so.
correct.
We'll take it on.
Awesome, I appreciate it, Lee.
Yeah.
Does anyone from the board have anything else for Lee, also, since you're so great to come in?
Out of curiosity, are they gonna be milling and paving and restriping Route 20 anytime soon, or?
So in the
Is
next
that
30
later on?
days, DOT has asked us to modify our placements to be consistent with their 2025 improvements. We're having a discussion internally tomorrow if we can afford to do that. Makes sense to do it. I would say in the next 30 days, we'll be working a sequence of operations to get that tuned up.
Yeah, I know you've been doing a lot, I just know enough.
Yeah, all our substantial work for underground cut throughs
Yeah.
have been done. We want to smooth out the road as best we can. The approach is coming in now, so project heading east, you can enter the site. I'll create that swale, finish that off and go to binder. But I don't see any roadblocks other than weather. Really kind of pushing us along. We have a little bit of a washout issue, which I'm working with Concom on the culvert side down low. So we're gonna,
Yes, I heard of it.
look at a more robust design.
Yeah,
Other than that, all the work on the road is in place, guardrails, swales, curving.
simple everything.
We're turning the corner.
All right, that's great to hear. All right, I appreciate you coming in. If no one has anything else, thank you very much, Lee.
Wow, that was easy.
Be safe, yeah.
I'll extend the offer to the board once
Yeah.
again. Whether you guys want to come out, I'm happy to arrange a tour through the building. A lot's happening, more's happening inside, that's happening outside. But we're excited about what the next 90 days looks like for us.
What was the date that Amazon was planning on turning the lights on and opening up and begin operations?
So to get up and functional, they gotta load the building.
Yep.
So right now we have the sequence where the conveying systems are being built. Substantially complete on the first floor. Working up on the upper floors. Robotics shows up on Monday. They'll walk for a week before they run. There are 80,000 components that'll be going up into the building. Put it in perspective, there's gonna be 10 dumpsters per day cycled out for 17 weeks, so 850 dumpsters. Yeah. So my guess is they're gonna be, they test the run. Right now, we're running some test packages through the conveying system, not aggressively commissioning. They're big buildings, they're complicated buildings. There's a lot of bits and pieces that have to all come together. So I would say their first launch internally is probably October. I think they're probably gonna be feeling good if they're good for November and hit the Christmas season. But I'm not Amazon.
No.
That's what I'm doing.
Sounds reasonable.
I understand we're the most important project for a district. Pleasure working out of town.
Alright.
He's been a great partner. Everyone here has been a great partner, so I can extend that invite anytime you want to see it. Outside's nice, inside's.
Great, that's it.
All right.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Louis.
I
Doing
ran
a
that video.
video site.
Yeah.
And it looks, when you see the drone video, it's a lot more finished than it looks like from the road.
Oh, nice.
You just don't see it till you get on the side.
All right, next up, we have a public hearing for ZP Battery Development LLC Battery Energy Storage System, 288 Sturbridge Road. We have an email here from Tom Colbert. I'd like to ask him with the public hearing tonight for 288 Sturbridge Southbridge Road to April 17th meeting to allow time to work with the building department on their comments. So we never open the public hearing anyways, you know.
Good.
All right, next up, we have a public hearing continued for the Boston Outdoor Living site plan modification at 220 Sturbridge Road. I have an email here from Jason Dubois who's their engineer. Hi, Randy, since we don't have a follow-up review letter from the past set of plan revisions, can we continue to the April 17th public hearing date?
Each prior replied to Graves' latest review, but has not received Guy's comments from Graves, so we're waiting on that.
All right, All right, do you have a motion to continue the Boston Outdoor Living public hearing at 220 Sturbridge Road to April 17th? Oh, go right ahead.
So just following up on that project, the
Yep.
building commissioner made a number of comments on that project, including some zoning violations that should be annotated on the plans that they're gonna correct them, or they should correct them.
Yep.
Before the board. Takes
Yeah,
any
we
action
brought
on
to
it.
their attentions if they have to correct those violations.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Or-
Sure. I'll make a motion to continue the Boston Outdoor Living, 220 Sturbridge Road until April 17th, planning board meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, next up, we have a continued public hearing for stone reduced frontage lot and common driveway special permit on Gale Road. They requested to continue to May 1st. They still in cultivation?
Yes,
Okay.
she's still working with the conservation committee for, and actually. Everyone is waiting for her engineer, conservation commission. It isn't conservation and holding up, her own engineers holding up, so. She's great.
All right, do the motion to continue to May 1st.
Make a motion to continue to, stone reduced frontage lot and common driveways to May 1st.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye, unanimous. All right,
We had a schedule again.
we are ahead of schedule. We're gonna go to, skip to the 725 request for approval for decommissioning bond extension with Extra Energy, 261 North Sturbridge Road. We have
Yeah,
we have a letter in our packet from Attorney Silverstein, who we requested an opinion from on this item as far as the decommissioning bond goes. It's in the,
and. In a nutshell, what Mr. Silverstein is saying is that. The decommission bond request is usually done before the CO is given, so that. The planning board has, he feels, the authority to request an updated decommissioning bond as of. Whatever time prior to the CO that they're ready to go, so the numbers. For that, but decommission bond will be reflected the latest cost for, whatever. Inside the decommission bond. If they were requesting a site plan modification or revised site plan, something like that, where it would trigger a public hearing before the planning board, then the planning board would consider requiring them to follow the decommission and bond policy. But at this point, they haven't requested that. We have a request for a field modification, which is not a full site modification, it's just been some minor field change.
And what was the field change, will that be increase in the number of megawatts and?
No, the field change, even though, my office didn't do that, that was done by Beta. My understanding is there was a slight error in the survey. When the site got cleared, it turned out that one of the basins, basin number 5, or basin A in zone 5, was slightly, it was a little further up than it should have been, so they relocated the basin within the footprint of the site, and they've slightly altered the direction of the road. I think there's a letter in the file summarizing that from Mr. Borgatti, who's the engineer for Beta. But we passed that by Mr. Andre, and he has suggested that it's a field modification.
Yeah, well, I did not provide the letter from that.
That's fine.
The changes are all down along that southwest, that northwest boundary. Given that we've had some water escaping, we've been working with the Concom to remediate some sediment that escaped into the wetland. That's been completed. And Ms. Rose Conway, I believe is her name, has been involved in that right through the last couple of weeks. We'd ask that the decom bond be approved at the requested number 221.7, I think.
And what is the size of the field now? It's 6.5?
I don't have that in my, whatever he approved is what we're building. We're not changing it at all. For exactly this reason.
6.94.
6.94.
You have Mike letters in 2020.
I'll be able to find it in a second.
5 megawatt.
I think the original plan said 5 and I think there was,
6.
yeah.
It was, I think, 6.75 at, I forget which one is always bigger, AC or DC. I think AC is bigger. And 5.0 at, the other number.
Yeah, we have, it's 5 megawatts AC, so that turns into
6.75, 6.7.
So it was 4 years ago that Graves did the initial.
221. 200.
Well, some time has passed.
But it was anticipated this was a 20-year bond, and that has been built into the calculation by both Mr. Andre and by Mr. Rebello from Beta. We didn't do a 5-year escalator, which is called for under the new policy.
Yeah.
We did a full 20-year escalator.
So even if the bond was approved back in 2020,
Yep,
it'd still be the same today.
well,
It's a 20-year bond and no escalator,
it,
if I'm interpreting it right.
I believe you are, sir.
it would be, but I think the numbers that we show now that's not sufficient to decommission a 6.75 megawatt.
But we can't,
site.
we can't go by that, so.
What that's not what I'm reading from. That's not what I read in Jonathan Silver's.
received based on number prior to the CO, which may change. Cost of materials, removal.
So things have changed since then and they don't have a CO and they just got their building permit. How long ago?
Months ago, not November.
So that was,
6 months ago.
Less than a year ago.
that was Mr. Silverstein's argument also, because they hadn't applied for building permit after all this time.
Yep, yep. So I think getting a new estimate from Graves at least. I'm looking at the data that we have now that shows that the increase in prices for decommissioning solar. It seems like it's prudent for the board to take a look at that number to make sure that it's sufficient and acceptable.
So just give it back to Graves again and just paddle back out to 221.
Yeah, well,
That's the only tough part.
Through the.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that, I mean, through grades, I think they missed a lot of the components, this detailed scope of work and roles and responsibilities and exactly how they're going to decommission, they're gonna de-energize the facility. I mean, none of that was really brought up in the original grades estimate, taking out foundations and conduit and trucking the storage.
That's all
panels.
included in our estimate, which was what Graves was ultimately reviewing.
Yeah.
So you'd have to look at our estimate and our paperwork, from our engineer.
Yeah.
And again, it's exactly the process that was set forth in the
Yeah.
site plan approval.
Right.
And that's what we've done. So it's hard for me to understand how the turf can shift on something like this after the fact.
Because the
it's
costs
difficult to
have
understand.
costs have increased
We've anticipated.
over periods of years.
We've
And it's not the compound inflation rate that we're talking about, it's the actual cost of the scope of work. I think
Cost
there's
of
been,
recycling, the cost of decommissioning.
yeah, I think there's been missed scope of work
2018.
over that time, so we're gonna give it back to Graves Engineering to have them respin the cost of decommissioning.
All right, can we do it without having submitting anything new, have them go back to their last estimate? Their last analysis and update it so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so that they have something to review?
Oh, yeah, we just, we'll just
Look at it again.
request Graves
Yeah.
Engineering to review the decommissioning bond and, submit whatever, we.
All right, to give them sufficient time to do that, can we move this, for that process? Instead of for 2 weeks, because I know those things back up for 1 month. To get that information back.
May.
I can't promise how fast, I mean, they're a private contractor, I can't say they can do it in one.
Just to save the space, if it's not done, we'll move it again from there. Again, we're not gonna be looking for a CO for,
Yeah, I mean-
for a number of months at this point.
I mean, I'll ask him to do it how quickly he does it, I can't make that promise.
I understand.
I mean, I would hope it's done in a month, but, you know.
So just there was a question on through the Zoom, so a 30% increase is a megawatt is a mere field change, and the answer to that is that's for our engineer, Graves, who determines that.
That's not an increase in
No,
megawatts.
All right,
It's a change from AC to DC, which is a
Gotcha.
normal conversion. The only changes that are involved in this field change
yeah,
are a slight change to the road. Again, everything within the original footprint of the project and a slight alteration of the location of the basin in zone 5, basin A.
gotcha.
Randy, could you send out the approval again, just to me or us, the approval and the bond estimate and
The
Graves review
original.
Yeah.
approval.
for the
with the
subdivision, just look at the
site plan,
site plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll hold off on the decommission bond position for now.
Tentatively scheduled for the first meeting in May,
Yeah, May
Yeah.
1st.
May 1st.
All right, since we've done that, we're gonna come back to a continued public hearing for Curtis Hill Estates.
Oh, what about the field change? Is that gonna
That's the
be?
next, yeah,
Oh,
that's it
okay.
after this one,
Okay, I'm
because I
sorry, I
had to
didn't
skip
mean to-
over because of public hearing, we can't start before it's by the
Understood.
time frame on that.
Understood.
I just-
Understood.
Can I just
Yeah.
check on one thing through the chair, just on the decommissioning, the update to that?
Yeah,
I think in our policy, it actually says that for the financial survey, the applicant shall submit an estimate prepared by an engineer. And, so your engineer has to prepare
We've
it
already done that.
and include all of the, disposal and update the prices and.
We've already done that. As far as I'm concerned, we've already done that. I'd like Mike to look at it again. I don't want to have to go through the process of doing a whole new
And
decommission.
what was the date of yours? Your
2020, I believe. Well, I think it was,
It was reviewed in 2020 by Graves.
Okay. All right, so we'll renew our review of it then. And they will, yeah, okay.
he reviewed it November 19th, 2020.
Yeah.
And our plan was dated August 2020.
This will be continued.
all right,
Okay, thank you.
Amanda, you ready?
Yep.
All right,
I'm not sure if you want us to bring up the plans again. We haven't seen them since the last time we were here. We were waiting on comments back from Graves from our last submittal. And the only two outstanding comments that are remaining, to my understanding, are the open space clarifications, and what the board would prefer, as well as, adding site distance, triangles to the plan that were recommended in the Kinley Horn traffic assessment that was in there. Other than that, I don't believe there's any further outstanding comments, that couldn't be conditional in there. And didn't know if the board had any further questions regarding the open space. I know one of the questions that did come up at the last hearing, was the lot count and how many would we lose if we couldn't use the space across the way for our open space. It's a total difference of 5 lots. Cleve couldn't be here tonight. He's actually down, his son is coming back from combat, tomorrow. So him and his family are down there welcoming him home, welcoming him home. So, he apologizes for not being here. But we would hope that the board would be comfortable with possibly closing the hearing and conditional, working on a further decision.
All right, thanks for the update, Amanda. I know that a couple of the board members need to, we visited the walking path that goes under the train tracks, and I'll let you guys give an update. It was John Smith and then Donkley did the site visit this past weekend.
Yeah, we took a walk up to the property, went down through the property, through the woods, through the trail that brought us down to the track and the cow tunnel. We walked both sides of the cow tunnel, found two other culverts, one more southbound and one more northbound, probably on the opposite property. But the cow tunnel we did look at and compare the
one
site.
furthest north,
Excuse me?
the one north, the furthest north.
Actually, there's another culvert further north than where the cow tunnel is. Not on that property, but it looks like it's on the LFD property.
Okay.
So it is, there's another one, then there's a brook that goes through that, and there was a little bit of water, foot and a half. So we assumed that wasn't the cow tunnel at that point, so we went back to the one that was marked, was it 1921?
Something,
The 1921.
Yeah.
So you said that if that property was not going to be used as open space, the open space would move back into the development.
No. So the well, we already have three, open space parcels that are within the development,
Okay.
and then the fourth one is that 14.72 acres that's across the same.
So the difference is how many houses?
Total of 5, I believe. And I know, at our January 17th meeting, I know it was discussed moving forward with the number of lots and everything. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Further,
Yeah, I mean, just because of the I think the disagreements within the board, I kind of took it upon ourselves to look at it and see what the property was like and see how usable it was and how well it was portioned.
I know
To
that
the
Charlton Heritage Preservation Trust, is very interested in that.
Yep.
That portion of that.
Yeah. No,
I wouldn't know how to access that from your property.
I don't know if I have something.
Well, I don't need to see the plan.
No, I just bring them up for,
How would you improve that? Two things, the railroad line, what is is that wire fence of some type, the property line for the railroad? There's a little wire cow fence that runs on either side of the track. Is that exactly, or does the easement, rail easement wider than that?
so the railings, so the existing culvert that crosses the railroad tracks, the fence line is in an easement that would, have the cattle back in the day travel along that fence line, the way the easement was written up, and that area would be, worked with the Charlton Heritage Preservation Trust and turned over to them for however they wanted to preserve or access those areas and work with fleet.
So this is not about, this whole issue is not about giving the land trust access to the land. It's about the zoning of that property. So people, the intent of that is so that you cluster zone that development, so people are able to have usable space within the development.
Yes, so that parcel, the two parcels, two tracts of land, it is one parcel. So even though it's divided by the railroad, it's still one parcel.
Yeah.
It's been deeded that way.
I don't doubt.
So as far as accessibility goes, that path and connectivity is part of the development. So even though it is, as part of the flexible development, open space can be deeded over to the trust. So it would be that parcel as well as the open space parcels within the development that we're working with the trust on. So all the open space would be deeded to the trust. So it would be that parcel and then B, C, and D as well.
So that is part of the parcel, but it's not contiguous with the land that's part of the development. And I think that's where I'm falling out right now is because it's not a contiguous piece of land with the development, can it really be used as conservation land for the development? In that case, what would the difference be having it on the other end of the town or, having development here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a stretch of the intent of the zoning.
If I may through the chair?
Go ahead.
I think with the continuity with and the connectivity with the property, the landowner had purchased that land of one parcel when it was, one piece before the railroad came through. And I think that they've gone over that. I don't have the paperwork with me, and unfortunately it is not here, but the purpose and intent of that, railroad crossing was to not disrupt the continuity of that property. So the property owner shouldn't have to be, subject to, even though it's not the parcels are not, or the tracts of land are not necessarily connected by that whole property line in between, or not property line, easement, so to speak. When that railroad came through, that railroad was to not disrupt the connectivity of that parcel, which is why they granted that easement in perpetuity to the property. So the tracts of land, being able to have that open space as part of the development has been something that's been part of the discussion since the preliminary.
But just the liability of people going through there. I mean, there was water running through that trench, that area where we were, the cow tunnel. I mean, in the winter time, it would be a sheet of ice through there. My more of a concern is who is liable if someone gets hurt in there, or what.
And I think that's the railroad's responsibility for upkeep, and maintenance of that, and the trust has another parcel. And I wish Lisa was, able to make it tonight, but I
They have a
know,
Partial against the railroad tracks, they showed it.
Yeah,
It's not
there's-
going underneath the railroad.
but there were several other, or a few other areas from what she was saying that, she may have information, but
Just so say we approve, okay. You got that, the kids, again, the children get going, they're playing, something happens. It could happen. We're trying to play to make sure it's not gonna happen. If something happens in that tunnel, whose liability would it be? Would it be the Charlton Trust liability? Would it be the railroad liability? The railroad say, well, it was never intended for human use, it was intended for cows to go through. We never intended to have a trail or walking through there. We've never maintained it that, and they haven't.
And it's definitely overstrewn with tree cuttings and prunings that they've done along the road. It's barely
Yeah.
accessible from, at least from the east side, sorry, the west side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is somewhat accessible from the east side, but the west side, it's a steep banking with,
that west side is owned by the trust. Also.
oh, no, the west side is the property that we're talking about. So is that,
Well, I'm sorry, it abuts that west side, yes.
that abuts the trust land, yes, on that side. But the access to the access to that cow tunnel and from that cow tunnel is sketchy at best. It's in a lot worse shape than I had originally been led to believe, in my opinion, after looking at it.
And it's not even summertime, once the briars grow up and through there, it's gonna be, it'll be roughly impassable to get to that. With the,
But like I said, I mean, we had walked it with the trust was very excited about it, they accessed it as far as the land goes, we walked the whole area. I mean, I think whether the property is developed or not, and, if somebody goes through that tunnel and they get hurt, regardless of the development being constructed too.
but we had no part of that, though. The planning board has no part of that. Anybody can walk through it.
And just make a comment on this, I have the same concerns as you, but if, should somebody get hurt, even if the planning board approves this, it reverts to the land trust and everything, somebody gets hurt, they're probably gonna go after the railroad, and the railroad's gonna say, we never gave anybody permission to do that. Who did you give permission? Who gave you permission? The planning board. So they're gonna turn around and go after the Charlton planning board.
I mean, it could not happen, but it definitely,
I mean,
judging the
I'm not
conditions
saying
of what I
you know,
saw.
would ever
Yeah.
happen, knock on wood, it wouldn't,
Yeah.
but you know, if the railroad say, we never granted anybody a rule, we use tunnels for community, you know, for public to pass through. And there's no document to show that the railroad is giving the public permission to use the tunnel. They gave the property owner permission, not the public. And my concern is that somebody, you know, God forbid, gets hurt in those tunnels, to go after the railroad, because it's the railroad's land. And the railroad's gonna turn around and say, we never gave anybody permission to use those tunnels, the public. Who gave you permission? The Charlton planning board did.
It's written in the deed, Mr. Chairman.
It's written in the deed that the property owner could use the property.
I mean, Lee's not gonna own that property once you sell that. Right? He's not gonna own that property. Who will be the property owner?
The trust.
The
It's
trust.
part, well, it's in perpetuity, that easement is in perpetuity to use with the land, and it goes with the land.
So the town could avoid all the potential issues just by not allowing that piece of property to be used as part of the reduced
Open space.
the open space or the open space for cluster development. That case, so, and that's kind of the way I'm in. It seems like a safe move. It is a piece of property that I'm sure the trust would love to have. But I think the chance of the potential liability is just too much, and I don't think that the town should assume that responsibility.
If,
Is that?
Amanda, do you recall in the deed, I know it would be helpful, if he was here, because I'm sure he'd have it right in front of him, is it for cows to pass or for passing? Is it specific,
If you can give me a couple seconds. I
Yeah.
can-
cattle,
specific, only a cow?
well,
Go right ahead, Kurt.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
I have recommended to this board repeatedly
yeah,
that this board hire their own attorney
yeah.
to look at this document,
Mhm.
because the applicants and the applicant's representatives are going to be a zealous advocate for the applicant.
Always up,
It is our duty
yeah,
to ensure that, one, it is legal for the use that the applicant is intending it to be used for.
yeah,
And as I recall reading that document, it says for the passage of cattle.
okay,
And yes, it may be in perpetuity for the passage of cattle. But having spoken to a number of attorneys about a number of different things, the right to pass and repass is a very specific issue related to the facts and given description of that document, which has gone so far as people having access to beaches
yep,
bipedally or bicycles
Mhm.
or ATVs.
yep,
And this is straying, in my view, outside of what that document allows.
So once again, this could all be avoided by just not allowing that to be used. as they-
exactly.
Yes.
If we do not
Question,
allow that.
is this
space,
saying
our
it's all
open
same-
space.
Is
we're
that
off.
considered, is that parcel on the other side a different map block and lot than the parcel, the large parcel?
I believe so, because the railroad
Right,
is
well, that's-
is an owned parcel.
Implying it's all the same property,
Yeah, I
but
could-
it is
I could see
a
how you-
different map block and lot.
I would agree with the applicant that it is the same parcel. Okay, because as we understand it, it was one large tract of land before the railroad went in.
Right, well, that. I
The
agree
railroad
with.
went in, they obtained rights to land, but provided access for cattle and farming operations to cross. Not, as some of the board has mentioned, the general public.
Did you find anything in that?
I found it, but again, I'm not an attorney.
Gotcha, no problem, all right.
So we did ask the land trust.
Thanks for
to
checking.
Reach out to the railroad
But
to get their.
I actually spoke to Lisa
It's
Westbrook today, they did not.
Yeah.
It's not contiguous. That-
No,
that's-
correct, yep. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
You should, I mean, I'm gonna be so as bold to say that you should reach out to Jonathan Silverstein or a like lawyer who can look at that document and advise you properly before we get into a situation where we spend thousands of dollars
In court?
defending a decision.
Yes,
Okay, but I still have the question, if we do not count that land as open space and just ignore that land,
Then I would say that
then we have nothing to do with it.
then it becomes, probably becomes a parcel that's landlocked. And the 25% factor for the flexible subdivision would have to be adjusted to the number of homes
Yes,
or parcels allowed within that subdivision.
right. But then all this other stuff goes away and we don't have a whole bunch of legal stuff and attorneys and re-attorneys
so
and
either
another
way,
attorney.
applicant could still appeal. He's still in that same boat.
Appeal it to ZBA,
No, court,
go to a court.
Is there anything in the subdivision?
yeah, go ahead, no, but you're still getting into the courts and wasting money. As far as
Right.
that goes, that's why what Curtis is saying is, if you get a legal opinion. Correct,
Short money.
yeah, as opposed to the long one. What it could turn into.
But
Go ahead, Don, sorry.
is there anything in subdivision bylaw that speaks of continuity of property or contiguous property or?
The open space is supposed to be contiguous.
That was what my understanding was, the
Yeah.
bylaw is the open space used for a cluster development is supposed to be contiguous with the development, and this is not. So that's what I'm falling back on, but I think your idea is correct. It's the legal counsel
Give a legal opinion.
to get the opinion. Yep.
Okay.
What do you think is, how quick of a turnaround did Jonathan have when he read the,
As far as, workload wise, I think Johnson's Silverstein is probably the best source.
no, what was his turnaround when we just had that decommissioning? He's pretty quick.
It was a,
Couple weeks?
he was the quickest,
Week and a half,
a week and a
or 2
half,
weeks?
2 weeks.
All right,
Once we found out Mark was leap off and around.
April 17th. Amanda, just so that,
So,
go right ahead.
so before you
Yep.
close out of this public hearing or continue it,
Yeah,
I have some other comments.
go right ahead.
I would not recommend that this board do any approval contingent upon anything, as I have made a number of comments in 2 writings to this board,
Yeah,
have received insufficient responses to those comments, nor have I seen any plans reflecting the changes that have supposedly been made to address those comments.
Okay.
I don't, those are not.
So we putting this to the 17th.
Hold on. Was Amanda forwarded any of the comments from one of Kurt's letters?
Yeah, those are the ones that Mr. Pierre said. Someone doesn't say anything, isn't that correct?
Well, that was one.
Yeah,
That was one comment. There was I made comments about the emergency access easement that was not redrawn as a full road
In the Curtis Hill.
at the end of Curtis Hill. I made comments about the lack of cisterns within the property. 1 was found where 3 would be required.
Okay.
There are insufficient answers to the overhead power line
Mhm.
that needs to be underground according to the subdivision bylaws. The board needs to consider how we are going to ensure that the loop road is completed as we have two subdivisions that have not been completed. And we are struggling with one that I don't think will ever be completed, and another one, fortunately, there is someone that has come forward that has offered a plan that may ameliorate the problem. Probably among others, I didn't bring that list. Now, the other thing I have to ask is the board, if you continue to April 17th, I leave on vacation the next day.
Okay,
I do not see how, even if I got plans, revised plans
Review
this
and
week,
yeah.
that I would be able to review those before
okay,
that date. And
would be May first, be most sufficient.
depending upon, okay, so if I get stuff before then, I may have some time to look at it. I'm gone for a week, and then you're almost into May 1st again.
But if we're gonna get to the point that we're gonna, Mr. Blair gonna have to act in writing for continuous.
Correct.
Run out of time on the clock.
All right. Gotcha.
Through the chair,
Go ahead.
if I'm correct, we did, and I can forward them tomorrow, but I believe the 2 comment letters that we did get.
Yep.
We did address,
Okay,
but we were never informed that they were insufficient, so.
okay, if you could mind just, you have Chris's email?
Conrad, have you seen anything from me?
I don't know.
Like, if you have a card, I can send.
Absolutely.
I can send that stuff to you tomorrow.
We'll do it. May 17th, or,
May first,
sorry,
April
April.
17th, we can always continue with the meeting.
Yeah, then we need something in writing from the applicant. Okay,
Great.
yes.
So make a motion to continue the public, well, first of all, make a motion to contact the attorney to get a opinion on the use of the parcel for
Deeded cow.
Deeded cow.
Deeded cow, so it's,
usage through that other parcel, access to that other parcel for conservation reasons for, with the subdivision. A second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
And we will have a letter by May first, or before May first, so we can respond.
Make a motion to continue this public hearing to April 17th for, Curtis Hill Estates, Curtis Hill Flexible Subdivision Plan. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
All right. Next up, we have Nextera Energy North Sturbridge Road Solar Field Modification at 261 North Sturbridge Road. We have a Graves letter dated March 18th. Have you gotten this letter yet, Chris? From him?
I perused it. Again, this was, plans were done by a different firm. by
Yeah.
Beta.
I know that Mike's asking, there's just 2 comments, asking for a revision as far as the inconsistencies between the invert elevations noted for the circular orifice on all 3 outlet structures that is smaller than the revised HydroCAD calculations. West retention basins missing emergency spillway, asked that the engineer revise it to design and incorporate the spillway.
All right, I had suggested to Mr. Borgatti that he make the revisions,
Yeah,
send them to Mike Andre,
yeah,
so that he could add comments to this.
yeah,
Apparently that didn't happen.
Well, I actually, I think we get out the revised plans of Mike Andre never replied to his. We did get revised plans.
Revised,
From Beta.
revised after the comments or revised with, and they came with the comments. I have a feeling that they haven't been revised
Oh,
since.
maybe it was with the-
All right, so can I ask for a continuance on that so I can straighten this out? Since apparently now I've taken over,
that's all.
taken over for Beta.
Yeah, right. All right, do we have a motion to continue the,
We put that to May first, that's the date of the other,
yeah,
other matter.
the
All right, thank
solar
you.
field modifications at 261 North Sturbridge Road?
Make a
May
motion,
1st.
Make a motion to extend the solar field modification on 261 to May 1st meeting.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. See you
All right,
folks in a
thanks,
while.
Chris.
Yeah, drive safely.
Thanks, you too. All right, we have, next up, we have a public hearing continued for ESA proposed zoning bylaw amendment to add utility scale battery storage system overlay district. We have an updated packet, there's some revisions
Yeah, we
that we
also,
requested.
received, some other documents on top of that. There's request that we sent to us, that we have Webster's, bylaw on, ESA facilities investor. Also, Mr. Mathis has provided us with, cover. Case from Carver and how it was, the town of Carver and how that was handled.
How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
Good, you wanna do a quick overview, you had the modifications you made since the last meeting?
I did want to do a quick overview. I thought maybe because it's been, I think, maybe 3 months since my first presentation, that I might touch on just the context that kind of is driving this project.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start, I don't know, do y'all remember December 23rd, 2022?
Like it was yesterday.
Like it was yesterday. Winter Storm Elliott was forecasted to roll over the Northeast, and
Froze.
what's that?
That's when Texas froze.
Right. So, it was a big event.
Now I remember.
Now you remember, right? Yeah.
Driving through there.
Well, in New England,
Big campus.
the grid managers that day had forecasted what energy they would need for the day after, the next day, December 24th. And they went to bed thinking, okay, we figured this out. We have our crystal ball. We know how much we need tomorrow. Sweet dreams. Well, they woke up at 8:30 a.m. for their morning report, and they found out that not as much energy was being imported into New England than they thought, than they purchased or scheduled. Now, they thought, okay, that's all right. We still have reserves. We have 8,000 megawatts on reserve. We should be all right. Then around noon, they found out that the storm had caused some outages in the system, over 1,200 megawatts. Still feeling good. 4 p.m. rolls around, they find out another 340 megawatts of outages occurred. Now the alarms are going off, and grid managers' heart rates are increasing, much as mine is right now. Around 4:30, another 150 megawatts fails. Oops, sorry, move this out of the way. And they actually have to declare a shortage event, which is basically the last line before you start doing rolling blackouts. And in the winter, we know rolling blackouts are no fun, especially if you rely on electric heating for your heating source. And also at 4:30, they started looking ahead. Okay, we haven't even hit peak yet. 5 to 6 is our peak energy demand. What's gonna happen? Well, more outages happened. Unfortunately, is it possible to lower that little screen thing? Zoom? Just like that. Thank you. Now, technically, physically they had enough electricity to meet the demand of that peak event. But they had dipped into their reserves so far that essentially they had to call this emergency event. And what's interesting is they had the reserves already paid for, ratepayers had already paid for it, but it wasn't able to turn on because they would have had to know to turn it on 12 hours prior to that peak event, prior to that emergency event. And so 6 a.m. before they even got the morning report, they would have had to know, okay, there's gonna be a lot of stuff happening today. We need to start turning up this coal power plant. Now, if they did have storage on the line, at that peak system, rather than 12 hours to heat up, it's a millisecond to heat up. In a millisecond, you can turn this battery storage on and meet the demands. And not only that, throughout the day, as those outages were happening, and those were regional outages, battery storage in those regions would have solved for those outages. And so looking forward in the 21st century, recognizing that so much of our quality of life comes from having reliable electricity, battery storage facilities such as what we hope to propose in Charlton really are vital infrastructure. And regardless of solar or wind, even if you have coal and gas on your grid, battery storage really helps mix those and make those resources flexible and reliable to meet, you know, as good as our crystal balls can be, sometimes they can be wrong. So the state's really pushing for more storage, and it's in response to growing need for electricity, especially during the winter. And we're finding, yeah, one of the things I mentioned back in the January 3rd meeting is that the state's attorney general and now governor has weighed in on the issue of citing battery storage and has found that it's really not only important, but you know, there's protections under state statute for allowing these things to be emergent. So we think it's really important that Charlton has a say in how these things get cited. And we think one of the ways to do that is to introduce a zoning bylaw that balances Charlton's needs in the context that is special, that makes Charlton special, with this need for energy storage and with the state mandates for energy storage. So our challenge is to develop a bylaw that can kind of balance all those things. And so what we're proposing with this bylaw is local control. I like to think of it as like a DJ volume board. We want to give you the dials that you can dial up or dial down to determine what suits Charlton. Those dials are size, or the extent, location and size, character, the appearance of these things, safety, making sure that protocols are in line with how you do things here and what's the leading practice for safety. And accountability, making sure that these projects can actually benefit the community and not just the region, the local area, local community. So in making this code, we've consulted leading practices. We've looked at all types of codes, examples. We looked at Town of Medway, looked at the New York State model code. We looked at Elizabeth, New Jersey, which actually has a really good code. And we think we're providing a better code. We think this code is actually better suited for Charlton. We've consulted with experts, including Jim McDowell, who's on the line here to serve as a resource in health and safety. If you have any questions, he's available. We've worked with staff to make sure it's aligned, not only fire, but Mr. Meskis to make sure that this is something that can be administered. Kathy Stanley to make sure that this is something, for instance, the host agreements can be administered. And then we've tried to be responsive to neighbor concerns, in particular, Ms. Stegman, but also some of the property owners we've reached out to. And we do think there's more to do on this neighbor engagement, and we will be hosting a community meeting prior to Board of Selectmen hearing. So with this local control, just to kind of put this in context, this is a map of Charlton, and what we're proposing is these little footprints that represent 1% of the total area. And when we zoom into one of these areas, we find that there are a lot of constraints that we're having to navigate. And so when we take into account wetlands and setbacks from houses and setbacks from roads, and the fact that a lot of this area is owned by National Grid, we find that the actual area that we could develop in is fairly narrow. Most of this area is constrained. And just to visualize, like if everything in this blue box is the acreage of Charlton, which is about 28,000 acres, this overlay district is about 1% of that. And the actual area that we can develop in is 0.1% of Charlton, because we've capped the total possible development to 40 acres. Recognize too that a lot of these storage systems are much smaller in terms of footprint and disturbance than some of the typical solar projects that are in this area. It's just a more land use efficient use or land efficient use. And we think that the way we designed this to co-locate with transmission infrastructure and substations, that we're actually complementary, we're fitting into sort of a complementary area of energy projects. We've right-sized the dimensional standards. There's a minimum lot size, minimum frontage. There's a maximum setback from transmission lines and a minimum setback from structures, roads, wetlands. We've included leading safety standards. We reference NFPA 855. We also worked with Captain Carlson to make sure that local authorities are part of the conversation to develop an emergency response plan and require training initially when we first start the project and annually as leading practices emerge, as best practices improve. The operator has to pay for additional trainings over time. Included in this latest version, we have a host agreement section. And this basically requires that the developer enter in negotiations prior to even submitting a special use permit. Remember, this is just the zoning. The developer still has to come to you with a special use application where we get into the nitty gritty on all things related to siting. And before that even happens, they have to enter into a negotiation with the board of selectmen. Now, we're proposing a mediation process because we do want to balance the fact that, you know, we do want to balance the needs and aspirations of Charlton with the needs and aspirations of the developer. And so at the cost of the developer, there is a potential mediator that can be involved with that process. And we're proposing that this process is open. All negotiations and mediations would be made public. And, you know, there's opportunities for public engagement through that process. I think one thing we've learned in just coming to you, and we thank you for the time you've spent with us workshopping this, that public involvement and openness really actually makes for better products. We know that there's big plans in Charlton for all kinds of things, including this new fire substation, which after talking to Captain Carlson and doing a little research, it does appear that there is a need in terms of fire service for additional fire resources in Charlton. And we think projects like this really there's a rational nexus between what we're proposing, the needs that it has on fire, and the benefits it can provide in terms of, you know, tax base to help support these types of projects. So again, this is about, we think what we're proposing is a solution to provide Charlton with local control of something that the state will increasingly, we think, become demanding on local jurisdictions to essentially preempt them on these decisions. But if we have something that's defensible, I think that's beneficial to Charlton. Now, just to kind of walk through your memo that I sent, because these are the main differences since the main March 20th meeting. These are changes made based on your requests and requests by folks in the audience. There's some technicalities. Page 15 under establishments. I updated the acreage to 295.95. Basically, I had miscalculated and left out a parcel, so that's been updated. Under applicability, there were questions about, you know, if we have continuous properties that are owned by two different people, how do we deal with that? Well, we've added the language that in those instances, regardless of ownership, the applicant must apply for a special use permit and site plan approval, ensuring a unified and cohesive development strategy. Development proposals spanning multiple ownerships must submit a joint application or provide agreements demonstrating coordinated planning and operation. Essentially, want to make sure that, you know, there's a master plan to this, that there aren't competing interests that might preclude, you know, people accessing the things they're entitled to access across these property lines. And so making sure that there are the proper agreements demonstrating that sort of coordinated effort to maximize the use of the lands. On page 16, under energy storage cap, well, actually, we added the energy storage cap. This was recognizing that, you know, even with sort of even with all the development constraints, you know, if we were to see a full build out of all developable areas, you might, there's the concern that there would be too much storage that would be allowed. So we've instituted a 40-acre cap. Collectively across the whole overlay, there cannot be more than 40 acres of storage. And we can talk about why that number matters. Essentially, through the ISO, we believe we need 1/10 acre per megawatt of power. So if we are assuming, maximum of 400 megawatts, that's equates to 40 acres. Page 17, under dimensional regulation sections, we added minimum frontage of 50 feet. And then page 19, we added the host agreement section, which again outlines a process, including mediation, to ensure that there's good faith effort on behalf of the developer in partnership with the township, town of Charlton, to make sure that this aligns with community needs and aspirations. And I do have one small minor request, additional request. Is under maximum height, we currently say 10 feet. And I was wondering if we could switch that to 15, but I would settle for 12.
Are the containers getting larger? Is that, or is it?
Now you're asking for another bylaw change.
Well,
It's not something that can be done here, again, that has to go to town meeting.
right, for our proposal to go to town meeting, that I would like the language to say 12 feet
For building height or?
for maximum building height.
Okay.
So the
Or
idea
15.
is that even the containers are not gonna be 10 feet. When you have a container that is 10 feet in length, or 20 or 40, then you do have the terrain with slight different elevation. So then if you do a slab that has to be 8-inch tall, then you might go to a corner and say, well, this corner might be 10 feet, 2 inches. So then we always need a buffer there, but it's not a big deal, and Randy thinks that it's
Well, I see,
Well, let's see.
the question is, does it fall under the 36 feet, or am I missing something?
Well, the solar bylaw, right, put a height limit in that and wraps in, I believe, the 5 megawatt and under battery, so I think the applicant's language mirrored that. If, so I dislike writing bylaws on the fly. It's bad. Making motions on the fly is bad because there's these other things. Now, I can understand what the applicant is saying is yeah, topography plays into, and how do you measure? Now, do we complicate the situation by saying, well, this is how you measure? Because we have a 36-foot high bylaw that talks about the mean height, the mean elevation of the mean roof. And if it's this kind of roof, then you measure to here and there. I've only had to figure it out once in 20 years. I've looked twice, but,
Look twice, do it once.
but so what I'm gonna do if the board doesn't mind is ask the applicants so how high is a standard container for batteries at this point?
Essentially, it's kind of related to like highway requirements. As you ship these, they have to be, it's basically 9.75 feet.
Okay,
And, go ahead.
we can do the slab in a way that won't be a problem, so,
Right.
so.
well, so the question is that I'm trying to work through here a little bit is if you say from slab height, right? The applicant probably is not gonna build a 15-foot tall slab just because, right? They're gonna minimize the height above grade.
Correct.
To minimize concrete, to minimize costs. So,
That's valid.
how much do we, it's like the fence, but it's not, here's the side story, right? The building code used to say Fences greater than 6 feet in height required a building permit. The building officials asked the BBRS, the governing body, to change that to 7 feet. Cause of this problem, right? A fence is going down a hill, all right? And I measure, well, do I measure to the post that's 3 inches taller than the fence rail? So the code got revised to make it workable because, well, fences, even though they do make good neighbors, sometimes make for disputes.
Correct.
And so I think you might want to think along those lines. That it'd be a reasonable number. But based on, and that's a governing factor, how, you can ship stuff taller. You need special permits. I mean, we've got a huge power plant that came into town, they came in on a railroad and they did all sorts of things, but that was special. You know, they're gonna build not motor homes, but modular homes. They limit their construction to what they can bring over the road easily permitted. So, you know, maybe 12 feet isn't bad. You know, but where are we measuring from?
Yeah, well, I guess our thought was above, I think there's a definition of just above grade. Above the mean grade, I guess. But well, I guess perhaps I'd ask too, recognizing that these also have to come through a special permit process. The planning board, I understand, is permitted to essentially do variances or modification of standards to dimensional standards. It can't do that for use or something along those lines, but given certain, it could approve a dimensional standard change based on
A special permit.
in the special permit. So we could keep it at 10 and then go forward.
Not necessarily, it
No.
was setback issue or something like that, is it would require a variance
From the ZBA.
from the ZBA.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Borensky, Mark.
Hi there, Mark.
He's a local land use attorney from Worcester.
We were working on it at the office.
I get nervous.
So I'm from Worcester.
Worcester.
Yeah.
There you go, that's not even better.
We wanted to bring him here tonight.
I don't even.
We didn't think, we brought him here to be a resource. I mean, he definitely can answer questions, land use questions about Massachusetts law better than I can. And same with Jim McDowell, our health and safety guy. Very, very well articulated and astute in his field. I would not even be standing here if it was not for his guidance on this project, because he's made so many assurances on the health and safety of this. And then we have Javier, I'm sure he'll speak up if he wants.
He really has.
Okay, he already has.
But I don't have to.
Okay.
So let's go back. We just go back. So as far as the height of the unit. Is it in here at 10 feet or are you just going by our okay.
It is currently in here at 10 feet.
Okay.
I had originally done 15 and then in my very first proposal was 15. And somewhere along the line, I got lost. I don't know if it was a conversation we had, but it got somehow knocked back down to 10.
Yeah, I don't know how you want to word it, but measuring from the slab seems like, where do you make that 10 feet from what?
Yeah.
Is it from grade? Is it from the
Yeah, from
slab? Is it
grade.
from, I mean, I think it's makes sense that if it's a reasonable slab height, then
That's 10 feet.
that seems reasonable to me. I don't know if I was gonna interpret this.
Okay.
If it was an unreasonable slab height and, it was on a 5-foot slab, I may not agree with you.
Yeah.
Go with Kurt and it's his fact.
So I think the planning board under special permit, has some discretion. If there was language in the special permit or in that section that said that they could bring in minor variations, that may be safer I know there's an attorney sitting here. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV.
No, go ahead.
Would be safer, and as I always recommend, and I know the board has engaged in a review of this with a separate attorney that's working on your behalf as opposed to the applicant's behalf, because that's what they do. They work on their applicant's behalf. That's we never questioned that issue when we talked about the other bylaw. In the solar bylaw, we just said 10 feet, and a lot of the discussion I had with Wes was that we already have a bylaw that has a whole bunch of these constraints in it. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's use the same constraints. We're just talking about a larger amount of storage. And that hasn't been a problem yet. Not that we've had a lot, well, we have a couple of projects that are coming in, they're on relatively flat land. They're making relatively flat spots for them because that works. They don't want to be on a stair stepping up a mountain if they don't have to. So,
So leave it at 10?
Right, if it does come in for a special permit, the board can determine whether, you know, if they're trying to put it on a 4-foot tall cement thing and say, okay, you don't
In
need to
that
be that
process,
big.
yeah.
You know, foot tall slab is good enough, you know, so the planning board has, ability to say, no, you gotta bring that thing down to a more reasonable height, you know, instead of if the applicant was trying to abandon the situation, or if you have a grade problem where, you know, they could understand the given situation where it could be addressed.
and no, just thinking about what we already have in the bylaw requires that renderings be delivered.
Correct, and that's the same, we referenced that for.
Right,
Right,
and we wrote that, suggested that be adopted by reference, so
right,
this is not just a flat plan, here you go, try and figure out the topography. The applicant has to provide renderings that are going to represent what we're going to be looking.
so yeah, right now, we're fully aligned with respect to the height, we're fully aligned with the existing large scale solar code.
How many, so you're fully aligned with the code?
With respect to that dimensional standard.
Yeah, how many are you not in compliance with in our solar?
We can walk through that, I mean, for the most part. I like that question and I want to be very clear about that, so. For one, because we're doing an overlay district, there are some items just related to. Instituting an overlay that differ from the large scale. I will say with respect to the overlay, though, we're aligned with other overlays you already have. So we've kind of used that as our template. Safety, we've added far more safety requirements to this code that are not in the large scale code.
Yeah.
Dimensional standards, we have different setbacks essentially. Yeah, list those. And there are a few spots where I say, for instance, post-approval reporting, we reference the post-approval reporting in the large scale, but then we added to it based on your recommendation that, the operator shall provide planning board with written notification of any ownership changes within 60 days of the effective date of such change. The notification shall include name and contact, and confirmation that the new owner has assumed responsibility for all existing operational and decommissioning obligations established under the overlay district bylaw and conditions. So any other differences are only additions. The other example of that is with the financial surety. We've added the language, and I think we talked about this maybe 2 board hearings ago. That it's at the sole discretion of the planning board to request project developers submit a second opinion on the decommissioning cost estimate from a qualified licensed professional engineer, not affiliated with the project developer, just to add, and that's at the discretion of the board, just to add clarity about what the costs. And then finally, the host agreement. this is not mentioned, this is not mentioned anywhere in the bylaws essentially, and actually, in speaking with Ms. Stanley, the town assessor, she actually seemed inclined to lift some of this language for the general bylaw in the future, but that's a future thing for. I think that's the extent of differences.
So the step back. And the minimum frontage, lot frontage are
Yes.
the variances basically. From our existing code.
Yes, minimum, well, in part because we're establishing, like, for instance, large scale doesn't really deal with lot area or frontage, it just resorts to whatever zone you're in.
Right.
So this does modify that. Minimum lot of 4 acres and minimum lot area of 4 acres, minimum lot frontage of 50 feet.
You just asked a question, earlier on, you had a couple of proposals, one of them was budding properties that are under different ownership. Are you planning to build a facility that would straddle a property line?
Correct. That, I mean, well, yes, I mean, in literal terms, yes, that is our intention, and then in this zoning. I'll start there, yes.
I think that's a dangerous precedent to set. I mean, we just had last week where, the last meeting where they had the same issue with the house where they had to merge the 2 lots together to make sure that there wasn't any structures straddling property line. If they merge the 2 lots together or do whatever, but to allow that is, could be setting a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, sure. But the chair, I just
Go right
want to
ahead.
address that. So from my perspective, working on other projects. So there are plenty of projects that exist on multiple lots. I have a project, a facility in Worcester, for example, where we have a stormwater management system on one site. And it's off-site and the building's on another site, and there has to be an agreement that is reviewed by the board before the approvals are granted to ensure that kind of continuity of use. And so ultimately, as Wes noted, if this bylaw gets adopted, any project is gonna return to this board for review as part of site plan review, special permit, and you'll evaluate the layout and you'll say, hey, I'm a little concerned about access to this particular lot, or I'm concerned that, this doesn't have sufficient lot area. And that can all be fleshed out at that time, as opposed to saying, okay, we need to have these facilities located on one lot, because there might be the ability to have a bigger facility that can provide more storage of power, which is really the goal here, right? Is to capture that solar power. You drive throughout Central Mass, you see all these solar arrays, right? And it seems to me that we should be capturing that solar and be able to store it and then use it for, emergencies, as Wes mentioned. So I think in my opinion, the planning board should think about, okay, well, how can we make sure that the areas that are in this overlay are used in the most efficient way, as opposed to saying, okay, well, we can only have this particular facility on one particular lot. It'd be nice to have this entire area over here to build a facility too, but the bylaw says you can only build on one particular lot. So I just kind of raised that as.
So where does that end?
What do you mean, what does that end?
Where does that end? That even zoning?
So there
Where
was,
does it end?
so through the chair, there's specific lots that are included in the overlay district.
Excuse me, for us as a planning board. That, okay, you're opening Pandora's box to, well, you allowed it at this site, or maybe we go over to that site, or somebody else is able to petition us to say, well, you allowed it on this overlay district, I want to do it something different, and so where does it end?
So I guess from my perspective, the town of Charlton is broken up into different zoning districts, right?
Mhm.
So anytime you build anything on a particular piece of property, that project would have to comply with the zone in which it's located. So if you're building on one piece of property and it's not in the correct zone, you can't build it. They have to comply with the dimensional requirements. Ultimately, if you have 2 large lots and someone wanted to build a particular facility, They would have to present that to you under site plan review and special permit. And you could say, we have concerns associated with height. We have concerns with, lot coverage. We have concerns about impervious. I mean, that jurisdiction is still with planning board.
Would it make sense to have those worked out before you present it, instead of coming and then saying, well, we've got this far, we're gonna propose this to maximize, even though it wasn't part of the original scope of what we were thinking at the onset of the project.
So to be clear, you're saying we should propose the project before we seek the overlay?
We should get your rules right of straddling property. So are you talking of the structure straddling, like a facility, or one power unit on one side and one power unit, the actual structure on that line?
Well, if I may, I think ultimately, the big picture, we're talking about cohesive and coordinated planning.
Mm.
And projects that, you know, do not preclude people access to things that are entitled to access, or do not create other nonconformities or emergency access issues. I think we're really focused on ensuring that there's unified and cohesive planning. And so through this overlay, the applicant must demonstrate that to the planning board through, you know, through agreements and joint applications. So imagine essentially, you know, rather than, and you know, there are, imagine an application that has representation from both landowners and all the proper agreements. If there are any easements, for instance, related to access, that has to be recorded, that has to be demonstrated. If there are any pre-existing conditions that need to, you know, through title issues, like for instance, if there are clouds over the title, if there is anything wrong with the title, like that has to all be resolved before they can even approach you with the project. If I'm hearing your question.
Well,
right.
I'm hearing that almost what you're proposing, the property line almost means nothing if you're able to do it.
Well, to do it would be in the overlay district. And I guess Wes,
Yes,
looking at these maps for Carpenter Hill and West Charlton, would it only be realistic with that you'd come to that instance on the West Charlton side? Only because you're restricted, you see by the high tension wires and then existing solar fields,
Yes, sir.
where you could cross over property lines with the energy storage system.
Correct. I think that's a good observation. We ultimately, I think what we're saying is we hope that the parcel lines wouldn't render a less land efficient project or a less cohesive project. I think parcel lines are really important. Sometimes they're a little bit janky.
They are what they are though.
They are what they are.
Comparing Charlton to Worcester is apples and oranges, you know, they have a lot in Worcester, all lots in Worcester are small, they have to put stormwater management's actually a whole lot different than structure. I mean, even here in Charlton, we have houses on one lot, but the septic to that house is on a different lot. You know, it's not that it's straddling the property line, you know, they're still on their own separate parcels of land.
Like her.
So the instance that Mr. Benson brought up that we're working through with an applicant was a single family home straddling two lots. And under my interpretation of zoning and working with the assessor, it would be bad. You know, I could not square that with zoning and setbacks with two parcel lines, even if they're owned by the same entity. Okay, much cleaner. A major project, Amazon took in several parcels and combined them all together, but you're talking about a structure that is going to be mortgaged and leased and a property, you know, that needs to be cohesive. I think in this instance, I'm not gonna say most. It's most likely that the property is going to be leased from landowners. Okay, so that lease would be memorialized. That plan would be memorialized. And having a property line running through the middle of a battery storage would not lend it into a problem of sale later on. But if you have a major structure that straddles lines, if we know Ted's package store.
Yeah.
Right? Numbers of small lots all joined together into one parcel, that is the right thing to do. Could have been, he was an owner of all of those parcels, but for it to work, they needed to be joined together. For a project like this, they could legally be on one lot and have access to another lot as long as they had frontage attached to the lot. And that's common to our driveways. We don't require our driveways to be on the frontage. And I think the language, I have not read the language, but as it's been described here, that the applicant is proposing that there is a sufficient clear language to make sure that both property owners are protected and they know who's getting involved in what.
Well, how would that be different than, say, one of our existing solar fields that is undersized, you know, not one that is under the 5 megawatts? They want to enlarge it, but it would cross its property line in order for them to do so. And we turn around and say, no, it's like, we let them do it. How are we
Well,
any different?
because this proposed bylaw overlay lays out a procedure for doing it.
Right, but the solar field company could challenge the town saying, okay, we want to be allowed to do it, would you let them do it? We're
The
setting a
bylaw
precedent.
as proposed
I know.
allows them to do it. You cannot take something from over here and stick it in over here
Well, I mean,
unless
you're
it's spelled out.
telling them to take the solar bylaw and apply it to its battery, so why can the solar company do it in reverse?
Not in the overlay district.
Yeah.
I know, I can see your point.
Why can't they create a different
I'm just
open
talking
space?
about-
That's my point, where does it end?
Like, why can't they create those overlay district? That's what I'm saying.
Town meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we saw how town treated the solar vote.
Oh, yeah.
They,
Was that a negative or a positive?
Yeah.
they wanted it to be 40 and we already had 30. And they
Okay.
said, you only can have 30, we're good.
Right,
They
right,
put
right,
more
right.
restrictions on it than what we had,
Right,
so.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's why we think-
Distances.
Yeah.
That isn't just project.
So through the chair,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring something to the board's attention. On Monday, the state released their, infrastructure siting permitting commission regulations. That was just came out on Monday. I haven't had the opportunity to go through the whole thing. But I did see that they recommended, battery storage, over 100 megawatts to be permitted through the EFSB. Under 100, under 100 megawatts locally, over 100 megawatts EFSB permitting authority. So there's a lot of new information that's in this document. It might be beneficial for the board to take a look at that first and what the state is recommending and which direction they're going before we.
Oh, we gotta have a decision.
Okay.
It goes to the EFSB, then it will be before this board. Here's like the LNG plant.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if maybe we're rushing this a little bit and maybe give it some time to.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
Gotcha. Oh, it's all information. Nothing wrong with it.
And has any one of our attorneys looked at this yet?
It's been sent to, Brian Falk of, Dave McDade, sorry, I'm blanking.
Byron
on
O'Connell.
the law. He's currently redoing it. So, I mean, just get a revision from last yesterday, so I had to send a revision to him, so, you know, it's. Yesterday, day, whatever day it was, so but he is currently reviewing it.
Seems like a rush just to get the town meeting and
kind of not smart to just push something through just to get a town meeting when we're not 100% sure.
You have any consideration to try and do this as a fall town meeting? Have you given any consideration and thought?
I would be lying if I said no.
Okay.
For sure, have thought that through, I guess to lay some of my cards on the table.
Yeah.
We see this as, enabling an even longer process of actually coming back to the special use permit and so forth. All of that requires lead time. I think ultimately we want to be good stewards of the work we're doing here in the land that we're working with, so we certainly want to hear what you're saying and respond positively to that. If it sounds like that this is a no-go, I mean, what can we do? We have to resort to plan B.
Well, I don't think it's a no-go. I mean, you can always go in front of the town meeting with a proposal, whether we recommend it or not.
Fair enough.
So
I guess I would wonder, with the recommendation that projects over 100 megawatts would go to the EFSB, I think that falls back to my original point about how the train that is the state is moving in this direction, and local jurisdiction over these matters, I guess, is, for lack of better words, rescinding over time. And so I do think there's an argument to say that if you're sort of proactive about introducing language to your bylaws that do think this through, and I do think that, there's been a lot of really intentional thought that's gone into this, a lot of conversations with staff and including this board. So I don't want to sound, I guess, like that there certainly is an opportunity to keep going, but this may be to offer specific language.
If I may, just.
Go ahead, yeah.
Chair, I think,
Harvard.
the Attorney General's office has
Silver Oak, we had a comment.
has determined that this type of storage is part of solar, and it's effectively over protected uses. So, I don't think people are evaluating, submitting applications for it without an existing bylaw. But, it seems that there's a lot of people, to Wes's point, that people are looking to Massachusetts as a leader in this storage. There's a lot of people that might be proposing this. So as he mentioned, this gives the board and the town some initial safeguards regarding battery storage, as opposed to, as Mr. Clay mentioned, there's new regulations coming out. The state could say, hey, if you don't have any regulations, it's protected under Section 3, and then people might come forward with applications. I think something similar might happen with solar arrays in the town previously. I don't know if that's the case. So I just throw that out there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wes, can you close your screen, because there are people on Zoom that are trying to speak, yeah.
What did Bill ask? You scroll down,
Mr. Borowski had,
scroll down. Okay, that's when you
what
want
was saying, council member Wes spoke about having added,
I don't know.
and Ms. Stanley and the board of selectmen approved your host Herbert written in your proposal.
Ms. Stanley has reviewed and she made small modifications, which was part of what I sent you yesterday. Her modification was to ensure that the developer / operator would be required to pay for mediation in the
I
host
think the
agreement.
question was in the bylaw to have her review the host, no? Is that,
Oh, that is,
No.
no, did I read that wrong?
I think we said the parcel for the chair. I think she says a
Oh, for the parcel?
Approve the host, Miss Stanley and the board.
Did you add a parcel number?
That's total square footage of the land area, right?
Okay, so with respect to question 1, what is the parcel number? No additional parcels were added.
Yes, it was.
How,
You added one. That was my
I'm sorry,
question.
you had
Why
to run
does
through the
this keep
calculation, I
changing?
think, what you said was the calculation, you missed one parcel.
Correct, yeah,
It
so
was
in the
within that
previous-
district, but you just missed it in the calculation.
Correct.
What I had heard.
And then you do?
So when he did come up with the original number for the calculation for area,
Yeah,
he had missed one parcel that was within this area,
There's an
but he did
addition.
use that for the
There's an
calculation.
addition, Pablo.
Yeah, it's a.
okay, but why has the eligible parcels changed from, March to April? And there was changes prior to that, the list keeps changing. Is there a
So-
reason for that?
Basically, I forgot to put, I forgot to in my Excel sheet, which I use Excel, then transfer it to this page.
Mhm.
I basically have it all written out in Excel and I missed one of the parcels that were shown on the map.
Okay,
So I had the parcel number on the map, but it was not included in my Excel sheet, which is why I had the wrong, parcel, the acreage,
and the one that you brought here in March,
right?
there was 2, 4, 6, 7 parcels for the Charlton West. Now there's 5 parcels. And on this Carpenter Hill one, there was 2, 4 parcels in March, and now there's 5. That's, it keeps changing, and that's what I'm questioning.
I believe that. So, yeah, I guess the main point is that the parcels that were written into the actual language of the proposal and the parcels shown on the map are the ones I've intended to include.
But they keep changing.
Wherever the map was the same.
I think the map has been the same and also the description of the parcels in the actual code, like the bylaw text. But in this sort of context section where I try to kind of set the bylaw conversation up, I basically had I essentially struggled with my Excel sheet and, but that map that you're looking at is the same since,
5. That has 5 and 5, but the one that you submitted to us in March,
right.
there was 7 and 4.
Did that other one include these 2 parcels that are really kind of out of it because they couldn't be used anyways?
Well, that could
Did
be, but
you
I'm
reduce-
just, that's my question, why does it change all the time?
So,
I mean, right
so for
now-
West Charlton, you had, what did you say, 7, 8?
7, 2, 4, 6, there was 7, now there's 5, and one of the
2 of them were-
parcels
Yeah,
is 40 acres. That's a pretty large parcel that you just took out of it.
Yeah, that was actually from our conversation on March 20. We determined that one of the, thank you for reminding me. So
Business enterprise. Right, so
exactly, yep. So as I approached you on March 20 and I gave you that document,
Mhm.
as the conversation ensued, we determined that the 40-acre parcel that has solar on it already
Mhm.
does not qualify based on our description of what the overlay criteria is,
Okay,
because it's business, enterprise. And I don't know if you recall us pointing at this map, but that's,
Because you're talking about this parcel.
Right.
Correct.
okay, so it's not highlighted. It's not.
yes, so it's not yet.
Okay,
so in part because of that conversation,
Okay.
we took that off the table, and that at least explains that parcel.
now did that change the square footage or the acreage?
It did, it reduced the acreage, but then when I added back the one that I had forgot to add in the Excel,
That was only
then it went
10
up 10 acres. So it like,
We should have taken out 40 and added in 10.
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
And around that, just on the West Charlton site, where the substation is, why is that property not included?
Essentially, we excluded properties that didn't fit our criteria for battery storage, given the setbacks and basically setbacks. So we're not saying that, National Grid, we won't say what they're gonna do with their
Who
substation,
owns that property?
National Grid,
The whole
yes,
lot.
or New England Power Company, I should say.
Cause that's a huge chunk right there in West Charlton, and it would seem like it's closest to the substation.
When I put all the setbacks from structures and all that jazz, like, it just precluded that so substantially that I was like, okay, that's not gonna be part of the overlay. I mean, I can add it back if you'd like.
But in Carpenter Hill, it is included.
Right, and that parcel is much bigger, so it's part of a much bigger parcel that also already involves solar and, I'm sorry,
On Snake Hill.
on Snake Hill.
On Snake Hill.
But it does also contend with a number of constraints that likely would be problematic. for
Yes,
storage.
that's what I'm looking for. Just a couple of other towns through the chair, Mr. Lansky. So a lot of the language in here, Wes, refers to our existing special regulation on large solar 200-5.
Right,
So that's kind of the guiding regulation that you're looking for, we're starting with, and this is a derivative of a large energy, even though it's written like a solar energy, so it has nothing to do with solar.
Correct.
Battery. So we kind of wrote this a little on the clumsy side for not including just the battery storage system.
right.
But in it, there's a lot of parameters, including things like the 30 large solar systems are the limit. That is the maximum that we've agreed to at a previous town meeting. So it seemed like that has a lot of bearing on adding an overlay and therefore injecting more, large energy solar systems into the town. That we're actually already at the limit.
Right, so this overlay only allows for one use. Or in addition to the underlying zoning. There's only one use you can do, and that's utility scale storage, which is defined by the overlay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, let me ask, is the question that do you think you're saying it will enable more solar?
Yeah, there's already 30.
So it won't enable any solar because
Not solar, but this whole regulation, 200-5, is large solar and other energy storage systems.
Right,
And in a previous town meeting, we were doing that for.
okay, and yeah, in the overlay district, we basically say. Except where stated in this overlay, like, I'll show, there's an example. So actually, can I use that example?
We still have a number.
Yes, yeah, I see them. I'll just see them all.
So. We reference, there are key moments that we reference the large scale solar, so it's not, we don't reference it for everything.
Right.
But for instance, where we do reference it, we basically say, XYZ standards from 200 5.21, and then we specify the specific section.
Yeah.
Shall apply in the ESOD unless otherwise specified in this section referring to the ESOD.
We might want to call that out more transparently.
I like that.
Your suggested amendment that goes in front of the town that we're changing or amending the quantity of large solar systems townwide, blah, 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 in.
Well, we're not changing any solar systems.
Yeah,
Don't worry about
energy,
that.
large energy systems, yeah.
So, so just to the
Go right ahead.
point of clarification. So I think it's a fair point to look at the existing, was it 5.21 is the large?
Yeah, but.
I think that relates to that's the existing bylaw provision, and so we are proposing similar language, so that way it's familiar, right? In terms of, and I think the town has spent a lot of time planning that particular provision. So I think we had talked about kind of like a catch-all provision. You can talk about that as an amendment where, references herein are pertaining to utility level storage as opposed, so that way there's no confusion. Someone thinks, oh, well, now we can increase because we're gonna rely on this overlay as opposed to the large solar arrays. That's something that.
Go ahead, Kurt. I think that, it's a valid point because somebody's gonna ask me that question. I think that I've seen this, but have not, reviewed the final draft. it all comes down to definitions.
Mhm.
And I believe that the cap on 30 is tied to a definition of a solar array, not to storage. Right? Because if it was tied to storage, we wouldn't be entertaining any 5 MW or less systems at this time. Okay, so this is another subset that is larger than 5 MW and is probably not tied to that limit, but that bears review.
Go ahead, John.
So just to Bill's point, why exclude the National Grid property on West Charlton? It looks like a perfect place for it to be. Why would you exclude that parcel in West Charlton?
With the setbacks and the setbacks and property, did you give enough area? Was that kind of what it was?
Yeah, and it's, I mean.
On the spot where the substation is,
Yeah.
on the other side, that's all swamp.
Yeah.
That whole bottom area where the power lines go through, that's all swamp.
Yeah.
I don't know if it shows on one of these maps. Another constraint on that particular site was the transmission lines actually occupy a very significant portion of that. It's not quite that, it's not very well represented in the map I made, I apologize, but the transmission lines do occupy a substantial portion of that site. I'm sorry?
These are all. You can see what.
Is that right here?
Yeah, basically this whole swamp. It's a real area.
Oh.
And there's nothing that can go there.
We also have a 200-foot setback from Sturbridge Road. That also contributes to eating up some acreage. We could add it, though.
Can I just address one other issue? Pick on your point number 3 in your well summarized cover sheet for this. It talks about the energy cap
Correct.
of this. And you go to talk about acres, and how about we introduce a megawatt cap on such a system?
I played with that idea,
Which is
For a long time.
Energy cap and, you know, weight of the system, there's no cap on the weight, there's, you know. We don't really care about the acres, it's care probably about, you know. The megawatts, so.
I actually thought completely converse to that. I thought that the acreage would be more concerned because it's, you know, we're preoccupying space that could potentially be used for other things, but that when speaking about megawatts, this particular use is interesting because I think technology will only improve over time and become more efficient and safer. And so I think it would be harmful actually to preclude the best technology from emerging in these. So like the example I thought of today, just in the shower, because I thought this question would arise. You know, if I was to make a zoning overlay that only mandated that you use Windows 95 in this space, you cannot use anything beyond Windows 95. I think that would be problematic. And in speaking with Kathleen Stanley, I also found there's a benefit to the town because the assessment is based on megawatts, that as the future unfolds, allowing for more megawatts would allow for more tax benefit. And I think the last point is that we anticipate, actually, I have 2 more points. One second to last point is that if there were to be upgrades that would entail more megawatts, those products are likely safer. They're likely have better technology overall. And I think overall it improves the property.
Sure.
And so, yeah, my hope was to not unduly preclude, unless you thought there was something we needed to mitigate because of megawatts. Like, in apartment complexes, I can see why we have a density cap, because there's more traffic and there's more water use and there's more. And I think in the case of battery storage, there's an argument to say that, yeah, there could be more fire risk potentially, but actually the data suggests that larger scale systems perform better and mitigate risk more effectively than smaller scale, just in terms of the broad scale statistics.
So everyone,
You're not drawing down as quick on every single cell. That's what actually causes the problem. You draw it down real quick. That's where you get problems. So if you say you put, you have 200 amp reserve and you draw 50 amps off of it, it's gonna, versus if you draw, you got 100 amp reserve and you draw 50 amps off of it, it's gonna generate heat. So
like,
I think the
so
megawatt
is Captain the only one that wouldn't have that cap? Cause whereas Lester's, Medway, Carver, right, they all have like a cap on their,
Well,
the
I see it,
actual amount. I'm just curious why,
Why can't we do
why are we the, like, so great that we're the first to do it the right way and just.
This will come up in town meeting. Like,
Absolutely.
Are you crazy not to cap the
Yeah.
megawatts? So-
well, I think those towns should cap, because they don't define exactly where it could go. They don't confine it to this narrow space around the substations. They sort of leave it up, they're kind of flipped. It's like you could easily put it elsewhere, because they have a tier system. But I think because we are focused on the location, we solve for some of the pain points associated with the higher megawatts.
Do you comply with the tier system, or is that they just invented?
We did
tiers?
steal from that a little bit.
I mean, is that a nationwide tiering
It's
or
based on New York State model code, so Medway,
they set the state?
they kind of model
So
a
tier
lot.
4 is over 150 when you guys are proposing this.
I think both our projects are gonna, would be.
Tier 4, yeah.
Is there a danger value? Is there any does more make the batteries, the lithium or anything, the facility more dangerous versus less?
I would think not, and the reason is that the, UL standards that these are, the systems are tested to, so UL has a number of standards, that there's a cell standard, there's a battery pack standard, it's all encompassed, and then there is a system standard. And we've already seen, a huge change in size, right? The first 3 big projects we had, basically 1 megawatt in a tractor trailer size, right? We're getting down to 2.5 megawatts in 10 by 10. Okay, they're using liquid cooled technology as opposed to air cooled technology. So when they gang these together or put these near each other, the UL standard is that if it propagates out of the cell, we're gonna try and keep it in the battery. If it propagates out of the battery, we're gonna keep it in that container. And the setback distance between containers or enclosures actually is tested that will not propagate to the next container, to the next thing. So just because it has more energy density and if that standard is still the same, it's not gonna propagate to the next unit.
We have Mr. McDowell on the phone too, if that answer was not satisfactory, he's a leading expert in battery safety.
Let me get the Zoom ones. Question 3 from Lori's comment, strongly urge the town to require a signed host agreement prior to the issuance of a building permit and not just the 90 days. We need incentive to get the host agreed upon, then let's go down some more.
Is that Bill's comment?
No, that's
Yeah,
still
I
Lori's.
think
Then no
that's-
double stacking the battery containers is what the intended by battery storage by limiting height written by the solar committee. It can't be hid, better fencing as well as safety. You can scroll down. Again, this is from Bill Borowski, scroll up. So plan B by bypassing the towns and going straight to the EFSB. I hope I heard that incorrectly. Well, lovely people at the State House in Boston have passed, in the past, so they consider.
Well, those are the recommendations.
Yeah, I saw that.
It hasn't passed.
Hasn't
They said what plan B is, what is plan B?
For us,
Yeah,
Yeah,
October,
Okay,
the October town meeting.
okay,
Again, I just wanted to say that, we've been working for a while and.
Yeah.
We wanted to get approval, like Wes said, it was one of his dreams.
Yep.
It was, but, we want to be making sure that you guys are comfortable with it, so. We don't really mind postponing it, if that's what you think it needs to happen in order to analyze what Mr. Clay was saying and then.
okay.
Yeah, no, but I guess that's my thought process is if it's over hundred and fifty, right? It doesn't negate the bylaw, right? Because the bylaw can still move forward and there's just a different track that someone can go down. It's better to have that in place so that the town has a bylaw. I'm just playing devil's advocate here in terms of.
Do we know, so is it, what town, was it Medway who bought it and lost and Carver is?
Yes.
Was also, so when that was lost, did they force them to have a host agreement anyways?
Go ahead.
Okay, so so there's a couple of issues here. One, there was the solar preemption under 48 section 3. I'm not gonna discuss that issue. That's being litigated, continuing to be litigated. But we did, give you information, and that's what this package that I gave you tonight is about, that we did give you information that the EFSB, the Energy Siting Facilities Board, said they did not have jurisdiction over energy storage because it was not generation, and this was a Carver case. Okay, last May, May 2023.
So they
Short,
rejected it and then it went to another board.
right, it went to DPU, okay, Department of Public Utilities. Now, these two boards seem to be joined somehow. I don't quite understand what their structure is, but they play together, and they play together in the LNG plant. There was two parts to that plant being cited. So the DPU said that these are, I'm gonna read the right words here. Entitled to be reviewed as a public service corporation.
But did they force them to have a host agreement?
They did not force them to have a host agreement, but however, and it was the same Carver project. Carver had granted a special permit for it. But the applicant of that project says, we don't like the potential for litigation or something that, so DPU gave them a zoning exemption from Carver
Did
zoning.
you, have you read up on the Medway one?
No,
Cause, and I only glanced it, but it seems like they lost. And then they kind of were forced to create a host agreement, but I could be wrong. I don't want to be quoting at the wrong way.
so my concern or my thought on this is that if the town of Charlton was to vote in this bylaw or this overlay district, that it does give the town of Charlton local say. Whereas if an applicant, any applicant went to DPU or at a future date, if the laws change and not standing, but it gets put in EFSB's lap. For the town of Charlton to have any input into that, now we're gonna go into that huge hearing process.
Is the EFSB gonna review this thing anyways? No matter what, because
No,
Whether we had a zoning bylaw or not.
no,
Only if the applicant
because
kicks it.
they're they would be the grant authorities. Wouldn't we want them to review this anyways? To have their lawyers look at it and
No.
their best engineers? I mean,
No, that's the worst thing to do,
I
isn't it?
mean, that's, will end up
Nobody's looking at it.
potentially
because
like.
the only reason remember how much we went through with the LNG plant and having the board involved, they were kind of forced to do all the right things that they were supposed to do.
Yeah, well, that is true.
Right, remember, like, there's so many issues, I mean, it was messy, but, I mean, there was a tons and tons of safety issues that if we didn't have all those good engineers and all those attorneys in the siting board get involved, we might have had a much, I mean, and I'm being devil's advocate here, I just want to throw this out, I mean.
I think that there is in the case of LNG, there is a lot of regulation involved in LNG. There is a huge amount of engineering involved in LNG. There is a whole bunch of oversight from DPU that they had to be licensed by, and they operate under their rules anyway. I think the issue here is if we have a bylaw, as I see it, we have control. And if the applicant will play or apply through that process, then you can set whatever reasonable standards and require whatever reasonable third-party review that you want. If an applicant went to a state siting board, whatever board it may be, now it's at our cost to fight.
So if they're in front of us and we have our engineers who know what they're doing, wherever we get them from the best, and they say, we want you to do X, Y, Z because it's safe, and they say no, what happens then?
Then they be similar to
Then
LNG.
they say, now we'll go,
We had LNG in our bylaws, and they said, yeah, we're not gonna do that, we're gonna go to the siting board, we don't follow.
So-
So why couldn't?
Well, what I'm gonna say to that is, Mr. Idlak, is that the board would make a decision. It would either deny or write conditions. And if the applicant did not like those conditions, which were given to them, then they would have to appeal that decision to Superior Court and say that the conditions that this board set was unreasonable, and it would have to be defended there. I think it's a better local process than going to Boston.
I mean, with the LNG thing, they said, they didn't come to the board, they just said, yeah, we don't want to follow your bylaws, we're going straight to the state, we're gonna skip you. You say that
But
they,
yet we still got a host,
huh?
we still got a host agreement, right?
That was requiring through the EFSB, yeah.
Just go right ahead there, this last one going off of what Mr. Muska said, they are proposing a special permit and site plan approval process. So as he said, the approval would have conditions of approval. So each project is gonna have some nuance, right, that's probably not captured exactly in here, right? These are like the main requirements. So you'll have the opportunity, once the application comes forward with the renderings, with the site plan, Mike Andrews gonna review it, or whoever you guys want to review.
Definitely not Mike, but somebody
Okay, okay.
who knows what who knows energy, right?
Anyways, Mike's, yeah, okay,
I love Mike, but it's not bad.
fair enough.
This
Whatever
energy
you guys
is a
want to
whole
do.
new monster.
Whatever you want us to do. And then, you can provide those conditions, right? So there might be a neighbor who says, hey, I'm really concerned about X, right? And you say, okay, well, this is the condition, we're concerned about safety, or concerned about this, you can put that into the approval. Well, if it goes before a state board, I'm not sure exactly what conditions, if any, would be applicable.
Go ahead, John.
There's one more thing. So-
Yep.
So, all right, so the state's gonna be looking for places for batteries, right? There's one in Carver. There's one in Medway. Oh, let's go to Charlton. They approved everything. It'll be the home of batteries. Why do we go anywhere else? Because we have the overlay district here. We don't have to, it's an easy drop
Or
to
the home
drop.
of solar, why not be the home of battery too?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just limiting it to,
It's too early.
The other thing is they could come in and say, we can put them wherever you want.
Can we cap projects? Can we say
That's what I'm saying.
one and that's it,
Just
or
one.
two and
I mean,
that's
that's
it?
what I'm saying. There's one in Carver.
Park. Can't do that.
Why?
Why? This is on the state level. The state doesn't want, the state wants to be as green as
Yeah,
possible.
but we couldn't say, fine, we'll do our part, but we only want two of them? Again,
We have the Department of Energy and.
Oh, they did it with solar and it all.
yeah, we did it with solar and it worked.
So there is a cap on the acreage, and it is an overlay. So even between the acreage and the overlay, it really severely limits where they.
What if
Good
National Grid now came in with their land and said, we have some lots here too, we wanna do something else, could they also do something?
Being an energy company, they can do whatever they
This is
want.
only one of,
Am I right?
3 companies that I'm aware of that approached me about having batteries.
Was National Grid not one of them?
One of them was on National Grid land, but,
in cooperation with. the
Basically
National-
being sponsored by National Grid.
Was it in this overlay area, out of curiosity?
So, I mean, at the time, we didn't allow it, so they just,
Have
went
some
away.
local, like, National Grid.
When you do a project of this, you have to go through ISO New England, whether you are national grid or a municipality or wherever you are, and there is no projects on the National Grid website. You guys can check it because it's public information, so the only projects are ours. The only thing I have against capacity is if you limit the capacity, are you gonna limit also the energy that everybody can consume? Because you don't have capacity without energy. Like, I know that it's conflictive and we need to discuss it, but if you are limiting the generation or you are limiting the way the grid can be stable, are you gonna limit also the amount of energy that you can use in Charlton? That's why we thought, and again, I understand that there is different interpretations and I respect that. But if you are limiting, I believe that limiting acreage, and again, the acreage is just 40 acres in the whole township. I think limiting the acreage
So could the,
makes more sense than limiting the energy.
could the host be affiliated with, when it's talking about income into the town, be affiliated with how much power they generate?
Well, I mean, it's
You
similar,
wanna play?
How much?
Actually,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
what
that's.
we're eliminating it with solar now already. I mean, that's, we're limiting generation by limiting the amount of solar fields, so essentially that's what we're doing, so
Not much income.
it's
from that.
not an argument that. you
When I
know,
spoke with Ms. Stanley, she indicated that the tax with the assessment of the project would be based on megawatts, at least in part, in addition to the land value. So for instance, with solar today in Charlton, each megawatt is $15,000, is assessed $15,000. Now, I don't think that we gotta change the map a little bit for battery, because that's pretty high, that would be pretty high, because it's so dense, so dense in terms of power. But the megawatts do matter when it comes to how much money the town gets. Not just even before we even get to the host agreement, just from the assessment itself. But the host agreement should protect against potential changes in how these projects are assessed. There should be alternatives and we wrote into this that the host agreement would be reviewed every 5 years to ensure that it's still aligned with aspirations of the town. Should, changes happen from the state and so forth.
I will, so Ross, thank for the clarification as far as you guys' plan B, and his statement is I would highly recommend pushing this to the fall at the earliest. All right,
So, I mean, I agree, right, so I went on our public social media pages and I said, does anybody know about this? This is just happening on the planning board. Completely unbiased, because again, I have no problem with the project. I just want to make sure that the town knows what they're voting on. And nobody had a clue. People were like, you're talking about things under five megawatts or whatever. Nope. People are arguing with me. No, you don't know what you're talking about.
Information, yeah.
Right, so if we put this in front of the town meeting, I bet my car that it's not gonna pass. Like, it's because.
It's a month away, right?
Right, it's a month away and people have no clue what's going on in there, and it's not good stuff that they're talking about on social media right now. They're talking negative, so if you want a better chance of this passing, and people need to understand it, so there really should be information sessions. Whether you come here and do like with a selectman or whatever to make it bigger, go into one of the schools and go in the auditorium, because if you want this to pass, we can support it or not. They don't care if they support it or not, they won't. You should see how our town votes, they won't know on everything. So you don't want to wait, but if you want this to pass, then it makes sense to not rush it through, because that's what they're talking about.
Right.
Rushing it through, you guys are being sneaky. You saw it, today is like a big deal, this many people are watching this meeting, because normally there's like 3. the video for the January, the first time you came, was watched a whole bunch of times because it was posted. So I'm just, it's just advice, like I'm saying, it makes sense to wait for the fall if you want this to pass by any chance.
Right, and we do that, we do this every day, so this is all we do development. So we have this type of township meetings, and we have the community meetings, and we doing social media, we are there every day. So we don't have a problem with that. What we are doing is following instructions, so we didn't do a community meeting yet, because we were advised not to do it. And we didn't reach to the town board of selectmen because we were told not to do it. So we follow instruction. You tell us what you want us to do and we do it. We don't have a problem with that. And we know that every time you do a new development, you're gonna have people against, and we are okay with that. So we've done schools, we've done churches, we select all the presentations, we are open. So you guys tell us and we can prepare the work and do it.
Do you
So.
not agree with me like that?
No, just the best is to have, I mean, with that, I mean, thankful for Dawn, he posted every agenda that we have on the planning board Facebook.
But like
page. And I
me-
realize not
like
everyone's
me
on
or
Facebook. So not everyone watches our meeting on Zoom and stuff like that, so I guess the more information the better, especially since it's something new and it's energy
Right.
storage, and I don't think the people, I mean, some people don't even know where the west end substation is on Route 20.
Right.
So when I explained it to someone, they're like, yeah, there's a substation there, and I'm like, yeah, there is, you gotta look through the woods to see it, but it's there. And,
Look in the woods, it's a dangerous road.
yeah.
I mean, not in
But
California.
sometimes the more information, the better, especially at the town meeting. Usually, I mean, usually at the May town meeting, there's about 100 people there. Usually about the fall, it's usually less than that. But if there's something that's debatable, more people will show up.
Right.
And they'll show up sometimes for the good reason for the applicant and sometimes for the wrong reason for the applicant. So, let's just say if you guys say, yeah, let's just go forward for the May one, and it fails, you gotta wait 2 years.
Right.
So that's the thing, so might be better to wait to get more information out.
I mean, you've got a pretty good document here.
Yeah,
I think
it's very
we've hammered
thorough.
it pretty well. Yeah.
And
I think now if you go with your public campaign, targeting the fall, it's
Like the
gonna give you
library
more
is a
time to
good
get
place
it right.
to have information set up and
Okay.
I don't think you can get enough people to listen in the next month.
Yeah.
To make it worth your while for many.
Yeah,
So who will be the point of contact to organize the meeting? Because normally what we do is we do panel boards. So that way we can talk instead of letting people jail. Normally, when you have a new development, there is lots of opposition.
Sure.
And we are okay with that because we just want facts and figures.
I'd say
The
town,
turmoil, I'm not interested.
I'd say town administrator.
Okay.
Would you
So then,
assume that,
yeah,
you can have it
definitely. Andrew
downstairs?
would, I mean, ask, cause they,
Yeah.
a lot of things happen in the senior center downstairs, they have, you can set up the, projector.
and the legalities, like, do you guys want the meeting recorded or not? Do you want a sign sheet? Because what happens normally in the meetings that we organize is there is lots of people that are not really from the township that come in and they don't want to sign in, they just want to say no to everything and.
We can coordinate with the administrator, I think, on.
Yeah, I mean, we go to Charlton Television, that could.
So video is good?
Yeah,
It's
videos
okay.
are good.
Yeah.
And then
We can
give
get
you-
somebody in there to report it and put it up on our TV Charlton.
Perfect. And then timing as well, the town administration, we know the timing, like if we are going to fall.
It's gonna be a
Yeah.
summer of.
yeah.
August will be the right timing to do the community meeting,
Mhm.
how much radios, how much advertisement, like 2 newspapers, local newspapers is good enough.
If they could help
Well,
you with all
I
that.
think that you really wanna try to shoot for, like, one of the first meetings before the end of the school year. Is once people get off to the summertime on vacation stuff. Then people will come back and say, well, I never heard about that, but if we try to possibly schedule something between now and the end of June.
And then another kickoff,
Plenty of time for.
probably
Like in
September,
Yeah.
meetings in October, so get it early, get some feedback,
Yeah,
gather that feedback, get it all together again for the fall meeting for a big
Okay.
push.
And the idea to the board of selectmen is not going there and say hi or anything like that, or this is what we're doing.
I like
Because if we want to be public or we want to now.
I would ask for a meeting with Mr. Bowles. Okay, who will, you know, he works at the behalf of the board and will say to the board, okay, do you want to entertain these folks? You know, they're proposing this, they've been through the planning board process, they've decided X, Y, Z. We're gonna ask for an article in the fall. And this is what we're thinking. I want to do something in June. We wanna,
Or, yeah, maybe May.
May.
Your point, yeah.
May or June, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, get that feedback, come back with a more solid presentation. The board has to deal with the hearing process, right, which I think at this point, you eventually are gonna close this hearing.
Yeah.
And then we would probably have to re-advertise a new hearing for a new article in the fall. But that would be all in that line of getting it queued up early fall, end of summer. And get the article on the October.
And our
warrant.
attorneys will be back to us by then, so it'll kind of get a clean bill, it'll get there.
Time flies.
And we'll,
Mr. Brian Fultz.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's like, you just try to have public information session, try to shoot for like between now and the end of the school year, because summertime is long, and then you're back into the fall.
This is the
and then
best
you
time
wait
to
up
be
to
here,
get
though,
the wall with it, for the fall down.
Yeah, all these details I think is really important, especially when it comes to, and some people don't think it is, but do the mailers the right time, allow them to respond at least 2 or 3 weeks. Do the presentation between 6 and 7, so everyone have time to come from work, or do 2 instead of 1, so you do use an alternative. If the town administration is the one that is gonna give us
Yeah.
guidance, then you have no problem with that.
I think we have solid direction. Thank you for this process. I think it's been helpful in making a better product overall. It's more, I think it's more right sized, and I think your recommendation of engagement is very much appreciated.
For taking the feedback.
Mrs. Vincent, I think she wanted changes in the parcel, so we will give her more changes.
Can I ask a quick question regarding
Go ahead.
process?
Yeah.
So in terms of the petition, I've done overlays in other municipalities, I'm just curious to see how it works in Charlton with your preferences. Obviously, the planning board is a potential sponsor for a petition. Is that something you're willing to entertain, or is that something we should be presenting to the select board?
No, because the process is the planning board, votes to,
approve or disapprove.
Recommend.
recommend it, that's it, not sponsor it, recommend it, you the petitioner, you're the sponsor.
Okay,
We recommend it to town meeting,
okay, yeah.
that's how it's sold.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to close the public hearing.
So, the procedural thing, so do we close the public hearing?
Yeah.
And do we table the decision,
Vote to
or do we
take no
just
action.
take no action?
Is that right?
Take no action because you don't want to vote to recommend it, not vote,
Right.
so you just see the, then they take no action.
If they have
Action on it.
questions though, like if they wanna come to the board with something, or can they still submit? You know, if they close it, yeah.
Well,
like if
okay,
something-
so what I would, and I'm not,
Go
you
ahead.
know,
Yeah,
I would suggest to the board that you close the public hearing. Okay, to a date to be determined. Because the applicant should decide what it is they're going to do, right, because they asked for this article. Yep. They probably need to take an action. And communicate that to you. And then you do whatever that action
That was
requires.
that question that came with that, like,
So,
What,
Will
we
we
yeah,
close it or continue it?
we close the public hearing, we can't accept any more information.
I'm sorry, did I say close? I'm sorry,
So-
just continue the public
An answer
hearing.
from the applicant.
Wait for
If they
that's what I
want-
want us, I want there to be communication, like, you know, I want there to be communication.
So,
That-
Yeah, it's clean.
yeah,
Okay,
And are there any other?
yeah, do you want to see if there's any other comments on those?
no, I think that was the last, except for they had, somebody requested that, they suggested we
yeah.
push this to the fall.
Yeah. I read that.
There might be somebody that wants to talk, is there anybody just?
No, that was a, well, they weren't chatting, they were sending in written comment, so.
And we will publish it, all of these these will be on our website, because when people were asking me, I went and checked and they went there, but we'll put all these, or do you guys have PDF copies?
yes.
Do we have,
Well, we have a PDF copy.
so we can post?
We do, yeah.
So we can put that on,
And if you
on
guys
our
have a website or whatever, a page or something that has this information, that,
Yeah.
that,
Actually,
then,
try to load it on the town website.
that's what I did,
This
the
is
planning
the-
board.
Yeah.
website.
Yeah, because that's where
Bill, go ahead.
people
they're
look.
gonna, I mean, they'll be going.
And I can make my, email available,
Oh,
maybe.
Bill has a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick thing, obviously speaking, again, Bill Borowski, 610 Haggerty Road, member of the Board of Selectmen. Just one thing to think about to Mr. Schaefer and the applicant. The idea of if you will, an optional HCA, depending upon a lack of agreement after mediation. Again, speaking for myself, I think that's going to be a hard sell in the Board of Selectmen. It would seem to me that any type of bylaw would require a signed HCA prior to special permit. Again, just speaking for myself, just something to think about over the next few months. And thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks, Bill, for the comment.
Thank you.
Brian, you cool with that?
I mean, I think from my perspective, that's, we see that in, adult use marijuana facilities,
Yeah.
right? Before you can apply for a special permit.
Correct.
Yeah, actually, in, town administrator Andrew said that.
Yep.
There would have to be amendment to the town bylaw for the whole community agreement, which that couldn't be done to the fall town meeting at their earlier.
And that would also,
Currently, it's only for the marijuana facility, right, Canada, so. We'd have to make amendment to that one, to the town meeting.
Oh,
For the whole
those
community
agreements are all
agreement,
getting redone.
Something other than marijuana.
Marijuana.
the community, the chair, the community impact fees are kind of the sticking point. Because towns were taking community impact fees, but also like charging
Oh.
adult use marijuana facilities for police details. And so I think it was Uxbridge had to pay like $1 million to a facility because they were like double dipping. They couldn't show how that money was being
Gee
used.
whiz.
So
All right, do we have a motion to continue this public hearing to a date to be determined?
I think it has to be a date certain.
All right, May 1st.
Well, do you wanna put it off until June? I mean, because.
Yeah,
We could.
Because if they want to submit
That's fine,
something,
that's fine.
or if they want to submit,
Yeah.
you want to submit anything,
Yeah, I think,
information or?
yeah, I think ultimately we'll come reconvene, but I think procedurally, the board has to continue meeting to a date certain.
Okay,
So,
April 17th.
Yeah, that's fine.
Make a motion to continue this energy storage system until
it's only bylaw.
April 17th.
I second it.
Almost in favor.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, listen, A&Rs.
April
Yeah,
17th.
yeah, sure.
You got this.
Slippery out there.
Yeah, be careful out there, it is gonna get slippery.
Let's do the treehouse.
Nice.
So I do.
I'm not the best driver, so I'm gonna be careful.
Good luck out there.
No, it's all good, it's all good.
And if you need help getting the word out, let us know and we'll point you in the direction. We'll attach it to our.
I don't yet, I don't, they wanna.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. We know this is a big effort, okay? I think this is like travel break.
The first zoning bylaw
You have it.
amendment is for, I'm right on that. A and R's for, these are lost by Cranberry Meadows and,
Very good. Have a nice day.
So I got this.
32 inch.
What's that little piece that you can
Excellent.
the Facebook page? This is really public now, right?
Yes.
I wanted to wait till it became public before I did it.
It's a public hearing, is a final poll, have at it.
I want to catch up with you guys. All right. Okay, make change. Good night.
All right.
okay, the first one we have, A and R plan for properties up by Cranberry Meadows, the Highland Road and, Pine Road. The merging number of parcels, essentially, Well, it's commonly referred to as lot 7 and lot 8 into one parcel. These are, we've gone through the termination because these are actually what's considered private roads, but they're open and passable to the public. So the planning board at this point, they can approve this A&R plan.
You can.
We can. It was brought up in, before, there's also a middle road, which is a paper road, it's not constructed, but it does have a power line easement to it. That, the A&R plan does not refer to that, but we also, it's stated on the plan that, you know, the planning board makes no guarantees of the zoning on the property and everything. So Kurt had brought up of whether this should be an addition of that new road is open, is passable to the public.
So when Randy's done.
But it wasn't until this afternoon, you know, so we had no time to even ask the applicant for the planning board can approve the plan on his face, or they can request to have the additional language put on it.
So, this is a very interesting situation. I've learned a lot about ways and, you know, here's a disclaimer. Once again, I'm not a lawyer. I understand a little bit. Okay, so these are ways open and passable to the public. They are not town roads. So everyone in that area, because it's not it's a subdivision, but it's not approved under a subdivision plan, has the right to pass and repass over these ways. Okay, and they sort of have common ownership to those ways. But they own the property, but they don't own the road. Okay, that's the best I can do. So
And just the ones touching the road, like
And-
not the guy over here.
anyone within this whole project, so this, whatever this is, Cranberry Moore Estates, or there's a name
Everybody.
plan, you
That's
know.
a little law.
Okay, it used to be, I found out just a little while ago that this was a rental campground area years ago. And there was a facility there that you rented, and you came from the city and you rented a cottage by the lake for a week, sort of like down at the Cape or whatever, but it was an organized operation. So we did have some discussion about A&Rs, Mr. Benson, Kathy Stanley, and Andrew Golis. We had a discussion about A&Rs with Mr. Jonathan Silverstein. We talked about this. And so this middle road, even though it's not traveled over, the people around there appear to have rights to it. So a suggestion was made by Mr. Silverstein that this language may be appropriate to be added to it. That you are making no determination as to the third-party rights to the use of that way.
Who's responsible for the maintenance and passability of these roads? Is the
Plows.
Right, the town of Charlton plows them and does minimal maintenance on them, as we have to provide emergency services and access to them. But we probably will never accept them. Okay, we have this on Glen Echo Lake on both sides. We have it on Cranberry Meadow on one side, South Charlton Shore, Baker Pond.
H Putnam Road?
No, I think H Putnam Road's a road.
All of it?
I'm not.
I gotta find that out, because there's one section that's section north of Stafford is supposedly
Oh, I know I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
adjacent to Jay Davis.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah, there's some cleanup the town needs to do too. Okay. There is a section of HK Davis Road that was formerly abandoned a number of years ago.
Yes.
Okay, that
Yes,
sort of
yes,
connects
that
that.
goes up to the park, yeah.
Right.
Yep, correct.
So I present that for the planning board's consideration and recommendation that they have that language added to this before they
Endorse it.
endorse it.
Okay.
So can I just check one thing? So then where do you draw the setbacks from this road? Looks like it's height here.
Well, so I have seen the plan, the
So-
septic plan and the building location plan for this. The building location is here and it falls with, does not offend the setbacks. And the septic system is shown over here because that's the only place they can put it, meet the 100-foot setbacks to all the surrounding wells.
But I'm just specifically, this setback caught my attention here. It looks like they're trying to indicate this is the setback for this property, 21,254, which is just
Yes,
5 feet off
because
the
they're,
road.
well,
But the pin is,
the way, where's the way on the other side? Oh. So, yes, they're indicating that they may have ownership to half the road.
yeah, they took half the road, and then they're calling the setback from their
Mhm.
presumed half the road.
Right, because I've seen the septic plan and the building plan, and that setback doesn't concern me because the building is being located here.
What about the building here?
No
Right.
building.
21,
Septic
22, 23, 24.
And
And
there
then
can't
32,
be, oh,
No.
no, this,
Oh, this middle road, because,
With the septic system here,
Yeah.
right, the only thing, you could put a shed back here.
unfortunately, you didn't tell me that until about
No.
5 o'clock.
No,
I
because you can't
get
get
on
two septic
all night
systems.
expecting this to
oh,
sign.
this has no,
Is
this,
Right.
so they're septic is here.
Yes.
Across the
All
road,
right.
across under the.
That they
middle
have
road.
rights to pass and repass on and lay pipes and wires.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, it's
Other
like-
towns deal with this stuff too.
do we write that language and can we write that?
Can we handwrite something on the, in Mylar?
I don't see why not.
Okay. So I only put that language on there. Just to say,
Save them time.
Yeah.
Under where we sign.
Right
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
they
we
use
just-
that.
We just write that language in so that
Planning board endorsement makes no determination regarding third party rights of the road.
yeah,
save the applicant from going back and getting another set of
plan.
plans and a
On the
Mylar.
engineer.
Oh,
Correct.
it's done.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
If no one has an issue with that, I make, give a motion to approve the A and R. Putting that
And
language in.
we'll add that proposed language.
Should we make a motion to add the language first?
Yeah.
You wanna-
Yeah, sure.
Somebody would like to take a moment to write it in. It's better handwriting than me.
Or we just make that as a
No.
condition of the approval.
I think you wanna write it on the plan,
Yeah.
because the plan is what gets recorded at the registry.
No, it's not gonna be my handwriting.
That's the
I'll tell you that right now. It would come back.
Not legible.
Yeah, it would come back.
Yeah, not legible.
Yeah, it would
That's
come
why I
back.
said somebody
I don't know
else.
who, is that you?
And my mother was an
No.
English teacher.
Bill's gonna do it.
Bill's gonna do it? Okay.
That way they'll both match.
Yeah.
And I lettered a lot of drawings.
There you go.
I've heard of a Leroy lettering set, but I never used one. And my drafting teacher hated it.
For rookies, you gotta do it freehand, then you add your style. It's magnificent. Yeah.
Wow.
I never did skip.
At least you get a nice deep block lettering.
Yeah, it does.
Where the
And
other-
it goes right, and it goes right in.
Oh, you an architect, John?
No.
Well, you should be.
Yeah. Make more money. Yeah, okay.
Cutting a letter? No, you gotta drive by so the
Oh, you
lights
didn't see it?
are saving energy and not annoying the
It
neighbors.
was hard to find it.
And Jen.
Excuse me,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
This is,
Yes, we
this is
can.
this is the applicant, Chris Hansen, of the owner of the lot.
Yep,
So what kind of language do you guys want to put on this? I was just trying to understand because what I was told by my attorney that, when the paper road's not, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, when the paper road is not constructed and the two lots that I own, wherever that touches, I own 10 feet to the center line on either side of that lot where they touch. Now there's a lot down on the bottom owned by Frey.
Yeah.
There's big issues with the title on that, so I couldn't acquire that land. Okay, so they own 10 feet on that portion of the road. So the utilities are going under. Even if anybody did have a right, they don't have a right and from Highland Road, because the center line of the road is owned for the first 92 feet on both sides by me. So again, this was just coming from my attorney. So I'm just letting you know that I don't have the rights all the way through the road coming off Pine, but I do coming from Highland for the first 92 feet. So I own both sides of that center line. So I actually own the paper road for 92 feet. So
Right.
I don't understand. There's no way anybody would ever be able to use that road anyways, because you can't get what would that road bring you to? There's there's Pine Road takes you out to Cranberry Meadow, which is a public way, and then Highland Road takes you directly out to Cranberry Meadow, which is a public way. So there's no use for that road. There's nothing. There's no reason for the road to be construction, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha. So I guess what, we just wrote was just that by the planning board endorsing it, we make no determination regarding that road, that paper road.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
It just takes the onus off the board. As far as
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. It just takes the legal stuff off you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So
So-
good to go.
Does McClure need to put that on the plan, or?
No, we hand wrote it in.
Oh,
You're
okay,
all
that's
set.
fine.
Yeah.
All right. McClure had asked me when, could I be able to pick that up and have it recorded?
Tomorrow morning after 7:30.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mr.
Chris.
Henderson.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Right.
You wanna take this one, Gene?
When you said, that doesn't leak? Oh, very good.
Oh, you gotta leave here?
I
Sorry.
guess, so.
Throw it out.
April 3rd.
All right, next one up, we got Initial and Contracting on Carroll Hill Road. I think we had that.
Yeah, this is the one we just, the board of just approved the special permit on. And so now they're just submitting the A and R plan.
Gee, I'm looking to the-
Where you going, Kurt?
Special permit on it at our last meeting, so.
Yep.
Was that in our last one, or was it special? Oh, it's right on the
No,
board.
you did the special permit last meeting. This is the A and R plan for the same lot.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, these two, no, funny laws.
Somewhere in New Jersey.
This law, that law. We use friends law, but we more than three for it. Yeah, those are two laws that's doing the A and R for us. And
Which is kind of the largest pipe work. This Friday night. I'll be there.
We just
Yeah,
said in the,
these laws, yeah.
Did they convey them to them already? Has it been done?
Yeah, I think it was done before the end of last year, because before he done the one to,
I've always loved.
get rid of them for tax purposes.
Somewhere. So this 5R, I mean, what's the?
Been a couple, there's tremendous. Yeah.
This one
Yeah,
where
so
they
it
come
was
back.
A and R for three, ends up being a total of three.
Time sign.
On Carroll Hill, this has enough frontage, so that lot 5R.
We approved them last meeting.
Last
Okay.
meeting, we approved these as reduced
Yeah.
frontage.
Oh, okay, so.
Some stuff.
I forgot.
I remember.
I remember.
You can't find out the lines over the lots.
You know, when they renovated it, it's like, holy shit.
And I can imagine what a worker.
She
And
knew,
it's done.
she knew sure that this was going to.
Yeah.
Well, last time I had eight goals, I had one of them. Better than the same one. Which
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting there. What? On my, map, I was just gonna see. Like the. Yeah, in this map, they're not all broken up, you can kind of see how that. Yeah, like has. Cool, so it actually comes out across here, so it's.
Oh, the
There's
trail.
a trail,
Yeah.
like down here,
It's
and
this
then
line here.
one's across here,
Oh, all right.
so it does cross a little bit of their lots. Well, like.
Yeah, that part of the trail was already in place.
So you can see, so the trail does come across here.
Yeah, that easement trail was already in
And that was
place. prior
that's
to
where
it.
those houses are, so. So that's, I guess, that's a question is. Does that trail now, you see the,
It's right there.
you see the trail?
Cause his the property lines here, is the line here, comes a little bit off that.
Yeah. Okay, so it's walking across their front yard though.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Well,
I
I
hope
mean,
the
they're-
easements are recorded in.
I'm sure that they are.
yeah, I mean, the houses are gonna be back from.
That was my,
So, yeah,
where would those easements be recorded?
They would have to be recorded, so that if there was a recorded easement on this as a whole property before it's subdivided. And they do the deeds right. They're gonna refer to the previous property.
Right.
And say, any easement, shown on, and it's on.
Right.
It wouldn't need to be on this.
This is an A&R.
Yeah, it's
And after Kathy Stanley and I, we had a wonderful time with this, and Randy,
Yeah.
participated too. You have to go back and look at what A&R stands for. Approval not required under the subdivision control law. That's all you're saying when you're signing this, you're not, and that's why it gets put on here that there's a disclaimer that we make no determination as to zoning. Kathy was concerned that we were creating non-conforming lots. It's not a violation. It's not a violation until you have a violation, right? If the lot is too small to build a house on, that's not a violation. Putting the house on a non-conforming lot, getting a building permit from me on a non-conforming lot is the violation.
I thought we're not able to create a non-conforming lot.
You cannot create a more non-conforming lot. Okay, so if you have,
Think about that for a second. So it's already non-conforming.
right,
Right.
So
Can't make
you-
it more.
More.
so if you had a 70-foot wide piece of frontage and somebody wanted to take 5 feet off of that, that's creating a more non-conformity or lessening the area, except, there's always an except for a taking under eminent domain. Public taking.
Yeah.
If the town was to take a part of municipality, I don't have to say the town, was to take a portion when the state did it. So in front of Green Gold, they took to widen the road. So they don't get penalized for that,
Non-conforming.
making it more non-conforming.
Well, anybody could create a non-conforming lot, no frontage, no access, no problem.
They're hurting
right, it's an
themselves, right?
unbuildable lot, yeah.
They're only hurting themselves. right?
Well,
Now they have-
but the purpose, but we also asked for a purpose. The purpose of this plan is create lot 1A to sell to Bob.
Yeah.
It makes Bob better. Right, we've done that. I've seen it done. We had a case 15 years ago where a guy wanted to put a garage in a certain spot. I says, you can't, you're not meeting the setbacks. Well, my wife wants it there. I says, you can't go to the ZBA and say, because my wife wants it there. Let me look at the neighboring parcel. I looked at the neighboring parcel, saw that they had excess area, excess frontage. Says, maybe you can approach the neighbor and absorb all the cost and get,
By frontage.
well, buy frontage and area.
As long as that's a conforming lot that you're.
Right, I can't make that, if it was
Yeah.
175 feet and the zone required 175 feet, I can't take 5 feet off of it. Right?
Make a motion that we approve the A and R for, Carroll Hill. Gunter.
Every once in a while I come for a walk.
I heard there's a lot of. So what's down?
You and Doherty.
I'll second that. Sherman Contracting, Carroll Hill.
Yeah.
Second. I'll
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good.
It's interesting, you can make it all good, but you can't make it worse. You can make it bad, but you can't make it worse.
Is that what that means?
Every town is the same way.
I would
Maybe
think
not.
you couldn't create a non-conforming lot, would be probably.
A lot of the bylaws are kind of based off mass gen.
You're buying the house. Building plan.
Can't think a lot on the next week. Can't right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Yes, keep it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else, Randy?
No.
All right. Hey, this one, go ahead.
BBC, their meeting today?
We did, I was not able to attend.
Well, how can you inform us? Okay, that's a hard one.
Just, cause I know that a couple of meetings ago, we talked about the decommissioning bond policy.
Yeah.
And in reading what Silverstein wrote here on that other item we had, might wanna consider making that, turn that policy into a bylaw.
I read that with great interest,
Yeah.
and then there is definitely conflict, and then reading the bylaw under the solar system, I mean, it's not bad, it's like kind of what we've said, let me get to the point.
Yeah.
For the discontinuance of our existing bylaw has abandonment, removal requirements. You get your engineer to write up the plan
Hold on.
under financial surety. Estimate shall include. The applicant creates a plan with all the costs, fully inclusive estimate.
Yeah,
By their professional engineer. I mean, it's almost like what I was going after, like, you get an engineer, you do a decommissioning plan.
Right.
And we'll approve it,
yeah,
or.
but just using a flat $100,000,
We
Right.
definitely want to get away with that. We don't want to use. that
No,
language out there.
because I think it leads to issue.
Yeah, and it's not inclusive, because what if there's all kinds of hauling charges for solar panels and.
Yeah, I think the problem with some of the estimates were that they weren't including certain aspects, like the transportation of the to the recycling.
Loading,
on.
They weren't all inclusive and it was.
And I don't think Mike knew anyone he was.
Numbers different,
Because
yeah.
it was really new back then.
Yeah.
All of the the restoration work,
Yeah.
like digging up conduits and.
Is there a professional company out there that does? The decommissioning?
We could find-
efforts? And I mean, is it an engineer that we need that's
It's new, it's.
in that
it's
field
been around enough.
specifically?
Yeah.
I think it's been around
Is
enough.
it a bigger
for that.
company?
But the question is, how many have been decommissioned in the state? I mean, cause I was
Well,
thinking about, I was thinking about the other day,
Look at,
like the oldest one in town, approaching 20 years.
yeah.
I don't think that, cause it's the one that,
On 20?
yeah, behind.
Yeah, but just
John
because
City
it hasn't,
Kendall.
it hasn't happened, we still have to make sure that.
Oh,
there's
that
not
one.
liability.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's.
Is that older than Richardson's Corner?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah,
I had the list, actually.
that was good up there.
So I think, but I don't know, maybe you don't need a specialty engineer. Done
Just need someone who's
because,
fluent
yeah,
in doing it.
it's
who knows
really
the
like, it's
trucking
gonna
end of
take
it
a-
and Stuff like that.
this piece of equipment, a skid steer, this many
Yeah,
hours.
tell you what,
But the estimates that we've been getting from some of these companies are way off from some of the interlocal data that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they were approved
Yeah.
by our
Engineer.
peer review engineer, so how do we,
Yeah.
how do we find the right value? If we're just gonna go with whatever they throw us and, you know, the peer engineer's gonna hold us stand up and go, yeah, that looks good enough for me.
I've done them before, so what I'll do is I'll write up a laundry list of what needs to, from soil excavation, from remediation. I'll give you a laundry list. We can review it and see if anybody wants to have it, because typically when they would call, because they would call my previous employer and say, well, I need to have facts and figures. for
159
bond. So what does it cost to truck?
Yeah,
What-
that's
what
that.
size equipment do I have to do?
What's the rules
Mandating
already?
all those components to be part of the other one, so.
That was in my bond, but then reading this.
Yeah, well, one of the things I see has happened a lot with the past ones, is they look at the metal or salvageable value. Well, we don't care, we don't wanna go to the metal recycling. business.
We don't care.
We
The
need
owner
to
can
learn.
keep all the salvage.
You know, back
Yeah,
in
they
the
always
80s,
do that, like,
they-
we're gonna
they
get
would
money.
sell them.
But we're not reducing the bond.
Well, back in the day, they did, now they just go into, now they're just thrown into the dumps. Right now, there's no more,
A dumpster can and it's a volume.
well, they're, right there, but there's only.
Thanks,
one plant
Kurt. Have a good
that
night.
recycles them.
I
Or
don't know
takes
if
them, they don't even recycle them, they put them in the landfill.
So just on direction,
Field down in Houston, Texas. They had a hailstorm, 3,000 panels got
Damn,
moved
that's
from a
right.
hailstone. Now in Houston, it's probably worth replacing, but think if that happened in Charlotte, would the solar company walk away?
Yeah.
You know, because
Are
that's,
they
I mean, they probably insured, we hope, but. I don't know, my basement was, they said because it was an act of nature. My insurance company wouldn't cover it.
so just give me some direction here. Should we rewrite our bylaws and
It should be,
draft a policy?
yeah, cause I think
Yeah,
from what,
because everybody keeps pointing at the
Yeah, and
bylaw.
there's, inconsistent, then if we're gonna rewrite the policy, well, now that throws in a whole bunch of other stuff, because we should include BESS.
yeah, just make a
Better-
bylaw.
better should amend that bylaw.
Get rid of the
hold more
policy.
water.
Alright, but then if we do that, then it's gonna be, we should rewrite this with battery storage systems, not just solar energy. It's a whole.
Different animal, yeah.
So then we gotta pull in CMRPC because it's the full-time job for still rewrite this thing.
Yeah.
But we could cancel the decommissioning bond policy now, or I don't know how you remove a policy.
We'll turn the policy more into a procedure. Make it more of like what, how.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, if somebody came in to modify the site plan, something like that.
Yeah.
We could use our decommissioning bond policy, so do we want to keep it in place?
As long as they agree with each other.
Well, I think we wanna get it in place until we have something else. I don't want nothing in place, even though it's not ideal.
So I mean, I could
And like I had some amendments to the bond policy, and I think we want to get more money, so it should include the full scope of work and line
I
item
mean-
prices,
In,
but then we're gonna rewrite it anyway. when we do
So leave it in what we have now and.
Even though
rewrite it, even though
low,
it's
it's not
deficient.
inclusive. Let's start working on that.
and we actually, our decommissioning bond policy did hold up against, 0 point when they put in the batteries on, because they came in for a site plan modification and said, okay, well, now you're gonna follow this. And they challenged it and.
Well,
So,
How about we do that? How about we then put in the decommissioning bond policy that I kind of rewrote?
right,
Make that the policy.
Make that the policy and then we can.
Because
give them
this
the
will
bylaw.
take a
Yeah.
long time, to rewrite, right? I think.
Yep.
And you gotta
Yep.
go before the town meeting.
Okay.
So, all right, maybe we edit the decommissioning bond policy until this is updated. Then when that's updated, I don't know what the process is to remove a policy, but.
well, we just, the board would vote to cancel the policy and follow the
Yeah, yeah.
current zoning
Okay.
bylaws that are in effect or something.
But if you read the bylaws, you have no idea that a decommissioning bond policy even exists.
Correct.
You
That's
know,
part of the special permit process.
Yeah, yeah, you just.
Their own procedures.
Yeah, okay.
If no one has anything else, is it?
A question, can we, any headway on bonds for what we have out there now and were you able to talk to anybody about tracking what we have out there?
I have talked to our tax collector's office, which is, not gone well. So, but in all fairness, Jane was able to find some information that is helpful that, you know, she and I talked about the simplest thing right now is when I get any information, no matter if it's gonna go to the tax office or not, make a copy and put it in the file. So it might go so far as have to dig out every file, but it might come to a faster solution than that. But we did find a list. So that will help us as far as, you know, what we, some of the earliest ones, I don't even think had decommissioned bonds. Maybe
No,
back
I
in the
think-
beginning.
We talked about that.
So, you know, but we have a list of what does, so hopefully, or 90% of them, so.
And are they tracked and do we know that they're still?
Well, the
paperwork?
tracking part
That's the,
was being done, but then the old tax collector, I could go down there and ask her anything, and she knew, she had the information. I don't know what happened in the transition between the old one and the new one, but
Can I make a software question here? I mean, who tracks, like, the building commissioner, this parcel has a building permit, here's the attachment, the CAD drawing, the approval, the signature, like, there's gotta be a database of this parcel has all of this activity on it.
All
That's
manual?
in the municipal ERP system.
maybe
Whatever that is.
they have all the building information, but they probably don't have property.
So then the assessor has a database of all the parcels?
Yes.
With bunches of
so
notes.
that does exist. So,
Yeah.
and that's where it should probably
It's
be.
not like, it's like there's a control missing, there's
And we
something
could
in
just
place that when somebody.
Upload, you know. the
So,
spreadsheet of-
does this fall under, this should fall under the town administrator?
Or clerk. Clerk is kind of record keeper. that does.
I'm not sure.
Back
it
to
was-
you,
Money
Jean.
still?
Right back to you.
I'm not sure if it was in the top of their list. So we might need, we need to like say, if you don't do it right now, it's never gonna get done. We, you know, it's.
Yeah.
Where's the town policies that say who does what and like?
And who sets the priorities? So I,
We can write them
so
one a day.
the town administrator sets the priorities, so he
Yeah.
needs to make.
Let's do one a day.
One a day.
Is my
Once
argument.
you're done.
That's right.
I mean, the best way is to go and ask for a meeting and sit in front of them and say,
Yeah.
can you do something about this so this never happens again? You know?
Yeah. Well, I think the town, I would make an argument, the town clerk is the record keeper, but
Yep.
I mean, the assessor's database is the place to put this thing.
And the town administrator sets the priorities. of what needs to get
Tells
done.
who to do what. Yeah. But you're right, it's a meeting.
It's a meeting work. It's a meeting, I just haven't seen any progress on it in a year, so we need to push it.
Right, yes.
Um,
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a
Uh,
motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye, aye.
Aye. All right, that's it.
Then motion to adjourn.
Yep.